You're on. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bourbon BS Podcast, episode 40. We have a couple of good friends of ours and our special guests tonight, Spencer Lappin and Phil Davis. And Phil's known as the Bourbon Monster from recent episodes. That was good, man. So we got a lot to talk about tonight, but as Steve's probably sharing it and
I'm trying to find it first.
Everyone else is, getting in here. Okay. Our topic of the evening is going to be get a hobby, and then, as we always ask, please like the page as you're watching, and please share it so that we can get everyone to enjoy the craziness that we do.
Yeah. Hey, everyone.
Yeah.
You should have some I'm trying to, man. It's pissing me off.
Yeah, so as people start flowing in here, tell us what you're drinking, what you're smoking tonight. We love the community and what you guys are kind of doing on like behind the scenes too, and it's always fun to see it, especially on our end, and it makes for definitely a better podcast.
Absolutely.
And Phil has been gracious enough to kind of bring a smorgasbord of Jack Daniel's selection, and we'll get into that later in the podcast, but I'm excited to try it. I'm actually not a big Jack guy, so I haven't tried a lot of it besides the really good one, as far as I know.
Which is the great thing about it is a lot of people don't think that they like something, but you're going to make that assumption if you've never tried it or you heard somebody else's opinion. So that's why it's always good to branch out, support your local restaurants or whatnot, and try a little pour before you buy it, So that's a beautiful thing. I'll go into a little detail. I've got the same thing with some of their products that I haven't tried, and I'll talk about them too. So I've been in your boat.
Yeah. Kind of what Steve and I were talking about before the podcast or earlier today, was kind of like how when we were talking about topics, because we kind of switched the gears up tonight, and I think it'd be cool to get into kind of what you know about like bourbon and how whiskey's kind of became
whiskey becomes a hobby.
Yeah,
it becomes a hobby.
Yeah, for sure, and definitely.
What? See what I did there?
No. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
And definitely how it pretty much surrounds, everything that, has brought us together, and then especially with the industry and everything, and how that's changed with bottles and secondary market and everything.
That'll be good.
I think it'll be good for everyone. So, and I know Phil gets amped up when he starts talking about that stuff, so I'm excited.
It's been around a long time.
I know, I'm just young to it.
Jesus also drank whiskey and wine.
You don't know that.
Oh, I'm pretty certain.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Cool. Here we go.
Hello, everyone, and happy Whiskey Wednesday. You want to claim?
You did. Yeah, it is.
Dang it.
There it is.
I'm Jake Sanders with Steve Crane, and this makes up the Bourbon and BS Podcast, episode 40. Thank you for joining us. We do like to say every once in a while to share it and like it, so we can get more viewerships, and we can really get this ball rolling. It's getting better each and every week, and we're excited to see everyone tune in. But we really needed you to share it to branch out more and more and more. We're accompanied tonight by some of our great friends and special guests. Spencer Lappin, thank you for joining. How's it going, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me, dude.
This is like your second?
This is number 3.
This is number 3.
He was an early guy, yeah.
Yeah, he was like the first 5.
It's not a competition.
Top 5 guests. Top 5 guests, probably, right?
That's why I like Spencer. And then we also have.
That's why a lot of people don't like Spencer, actually.
It's really good beer, guys.
And we also have Phil Davis, aka the Bourbon Monster, as some of you may know from the
last week.
Was it last week?
Yeah,
okay.
Halloween.
Yeah, so that was pretty funny, man.
Yeah, thank you for letting me be on here. Thank you, Spence, for letting me be on here because they asked Spence if I could be on tonight due to my work and circumstances, and he obliged. So I
we had to pay him more. So
the more the merrier. The more the merrier.
Yeah, I got cigars and a bunch of whiskey. So
yeah, this is all Phil. So if this is your first time tuning in tonight, we do a whiskey pairing with a cigar, and we talk about both, and we talk about the pairing, and we have our main subject of the evening, which is get a hobby tonight. We also have our good friend Dustin Bovey that's always here supporting us and helping us out with things. And don't worry for his friends, he'll be back on soon, probably next 2 weeks or so.
2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, we have a really good episode here tonight, I think.
Let's hope so.
Number 40 here, gents. Number 40.
Yeah.
Number 40. We made it.
That's a little bit
As
sober.
Jake says to number 40, we made it.
I just say that because
I like
I don't really know how else to get that
good.
across.
It's good.
But we do want to thank our sponsors.
That's what I was going to get to.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, sponsors, we're smoking the CLE Prieto tonight. It's the 5x50. It's from CLE Cigars, and by way of Tinder Box at Easton, which sponsors us with the first cigar every week, which is fantastic. And then we also have the Monte Cristo Classic as well in the Robusto size, and that's going to be from Altadis USA, who is behind us. It's Romeo, Monte Cristo, H. Upman, and several other brands.
Aging room.
Lot. So Butera, which we've had on here before.
Yes.
And then also the BS Cigar Company, which I'm sure there's some floating around here, but
You're wearing their sweatshirt.
I'm wearing a sweatshirt. Spencer's wearing a sweatshirt. Dustin, you can't see, is wearing a sweatshirt as well. So yeah, we've got a lot of love there.
Now, is
So.
it true that you're the S in BS?
Jesus Christ, yes. We've talked about this. So the first time, yeah, whatever.
Spencer,
check out.
See, Spencer looks confused.
Wait, what? Your name is Steve.
Mind blown.
And yes, so that is a local brand that is starting to grow quite a bit, and we've had actually a few people from the podcast that are interested in it as well, so that's good. But yeah, so thank you all sponsors. Thank you guys. Like Jake said, like, share, follow Instagram, Facebook. We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on all the other podcast viewers, and also on YouTube. That's one that I really want to kind of push on before we get into it, is that we post on YouTube the video portion of it. As long as it's saving, we're still working through the kinks, but when we can save it, we're going to put it on YouTube on the Friday as well. So if you see that, look us up, Bourbon and BS Podcast on YouTube. Subscribe to that. Just anyone that's enjoying this, share it to people that you think would enjoy it as well, and then show us some love by doing that, because that always helps us out as well. So on with the show.
Yeah.
And it's cold here in Columbus, finally.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, so we can have a ride. Thanks, Phil.
Hey, beautiful, and we'll keep warm.
Yes, for sure. We got our cigars and everything.
So I got a question for you, Steve.
Okay, Phil.
Here we go.
With all the different technologies you say, like the YouTube and stuff like that, I'm a big fan of the podcast, because when I'm listening, I can still kind of like surf the web while the podcast is up and still going, so I can multitask. What is the benefits to some of these other platforms? Because I'm kind of a creature of habit. I stay with kind of like what I know. What's the benefit to like the YouTube or doing the other platforms?
Everyone, I think, so when we look at other podcasts that are larger, one of the things that's nice about it is that it's not just exclusive to the like audio only. So they do the video side of it, where on YouTube, people, while they're either like working and they can like pull that up on their laptops, and some people sit there and watch it too. So like a lot of times too, with YouTube, you get the video portion and you have this audio that we're doing right now as well. If you go further down the road, hopefully we'll have better camera angles, we'll have all that stuff as well. But for now, YouTube is just another way that some people like to listen to podcasts, because it does have video as well, so you can kind of have it on in the background instead of having it run through like a mobile device or an iPad.
Gotcha.
And then on top of that, the best way I like about doing this is the Facebook Live has caught some traction. We thought about going to YouTube Live as well, but with being Facebook Live, the nice thing is that's where we've got most viewers and listeners through that. And if you're doing it during the actual podcast, then that's a way that you can tune in and you can actually contribute to the conversation, which we love.
I think that's a key. When, like, just a side note is, because I've got questions about, how do you start up your own podcast and how do you get started and stuff, and it's just like getting a mic. I mean, people do it on just Apple earbuds and stuff like that, but I think the biggest key is like finding where your like sticking point is and understanding what grabs and what doesn't grab and what platforms grab. But it's key to do all platforms.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense.
And that was one thing I had to learn, like in my old.
The biggest thing is that it's not harder, but there's more in depth on getting the analytics on how people are watching, and that's where we've put a little bit more focus on the Facebook side of it, because that's where we see that. At first we were doing Instagram Live, and that was not as user friendly, and it fell off after 24 hours. Now we can share all the videos through Facebook as well. So if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, if you have iTunes, if you have Spotify, if you have any other podcast listener, you can listen to it like however you like. Like you can listen in the car, you can listen at home, you can listen at your your work, if you're like just on your iPad or on some other tablet device, anything. There's no reason that if we're only on one thing like Facebook, and like, well, I don't have a Facebook account, so I guess I can't listen. I don't have iTunes, I don't have the podcast thing, I don't have any Apple products, so I can't listen to it. So that's where you try to make it as convenient as possible for anyone, that if you want to share it, all right, you don't have this, try this. If you don't have that, try that. So it's all about trying to make it user friendly for everyone.
Yeah, I use the Facebook because I can watch it not live, but I get off of work late. When you guys are done, when I'm driving home, I can actually watch the video just shortly after.
Smart while driving, yeah.
Well, listen.
Safety first, yeah, no.
Listen through my Bluetooth. And then usually what I do though is once it gets to a certain point, then I cut it off, and then I'll go to the podcast when you... I am not the safest person in the world, but I have made it almost 37 years.
I'm proud of you.
I did want to say we did have a big breakthrough on Monday, which it may end up pretty cool, is that we've been struggling trying to figure out how to have people call in and to have all of our different ways of recording to coincide together. And we think that we found it.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
So we'll probably get that tested out in the next month or so for real.
Yeah, for those of you that tuned in or saw the post and wondering what the hell we were doing on Monday, it was literally trying to do some dry runs and make sure that if we have someone scheduled to appear that is not in the Columbus area, that whether they're a friend of the show, if they are from either industry, the cigars or bourbon, hell, if we get a psychologist at some point for one of these episodes.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I am done.
Next time to my house.
Focus on Jake's face like this.
Yeah.
Next time you're in Cuba, you can call in.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's right. So that has worked fairly well on Monday. We think we got it. So look forward. That's going to expand the potential of some of these episodes.
Yeah. So do you want to get into the whiskey?
Yeah.
All right.
We got a table full of Jack.
We got a table full of Jack Daniels. It's pretty cool. Thank you, Phil, for bringing all of this. Especially with, I'm sure you've got a bunch of different bottles of Jack Daniels besides this, but these are like, what was the thought of bringing just these?
Okay, so again, like you made a comment, I think before we actually started the podcast, you're like, I'm not much of a Jack drinker, and there's certain connotations that certain beverages have, Jack is one of the most universal whiskeys in the world, especially when it comes to America. They been doing it for a long time. They put a lot of money into advertising. I kind of got into Jack when I started collecting. In about 2002, 3, like actually enjoying it and learning about it and educating. My roommate in college, it was probably somewhere around 2004 or 5, got me a bottle of Jack Daniels 1981 replica gold medal winner.
Interesting.
Got it at the distiller, gave it to me, and I was like, wow, what's this about? Started researching more about it, and then I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And everybody around this table knows that we're going on a big bourbon craze right now, And Jack Daniels is not officially a bourbon.
Yeah.
So I thought, hey, let's try something else. The podcast is awesome, and it's about guys sitting around, guys and girls just socializing and chatting. And you never know what somebody's going to bring to the party, and that's how you learn. Educate yourself, try something new. So I was like, hey, let's do something a little outside the box. It's still whiskey, it's still from America.
It's still basically considered a bourbon. I mean, not technically it is, but it's
there's a process in which makes it not. So I was like, hey, let's try something a little different, and talk about that and kind of get out there and see what people think about it.
So Phil, I'm glad you brought the Jack. Jack actually got me into bourbon, because when I was in college and things like that, it was all beer. And then it was vodka tonics for the most part.
Like a lady.
Like a lady.
Yeah. Extra
but
fruit.
I was looking for
Extra
something
fruit.
that I could just drink by itself. And I wasn't a Scotch guy, so I tried Jack Daniels. And I really, really liked Jack Daniels. And then Jack started to get a little too sweet for me. And then that's kind of where I switched over to the bourbons. But I think we were mentioned earlier when we were talking, I was at a charity event this weekend and they were serving Jack and apple cider for some of the women, and it was absolutely delicious. But just regular Jack Daniels, I forgot how good it is, so I appreciate you bringing some.
Oh, my pleasure.
And these do not taste like the normal Jack Daniels that I'm used to either.
Yeah, I'm excited for you guys to try it and get your guys' input.
So what did we start with? This is the number 27 gold.
Yeah.
Okay, double barrel it says.
So it's recently in the last year or two been released in selected areas here in the United States, but originally it was like a duty-free in Europe release. So the way Jack Daniels, their regular 80 proof number 7 works is they distill it. After they distill it, they run it through the mellowing process, which is also known as the Lincoln County process. So they take maple and they char it, and they drip it through, like I think the vats are like 30 feet tall, I believe. And then comes out and they put it in a barrel. That's regular Jack Daniels.
Okay.
This one right here is unique because the process is the same as regular Jack. It trickles through the first time and gets put in an American oak barrel. Very similar process to bourbon. And then the second time they trickle it through, and then they put it in a maple barrel. Okay, so that's the same maple wood that they do the mellowing process. So again, that Lincoln County process when they trickle it down through there. So it's aged in 2 different barrels, and it's mellowed twice. So that gives it a very unique characteristic.
It's
kinda,
smooth.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what you guys think.
And sweet. I get sweetness from it.
It's so smooth.
You get that sweetness like he was chatting about from that mellowing process, because that's the maple barrels, you know, and then naturally, you know, you get the sweetness from the oak barrels. But then when they age it in that second time, that second barrel, you get a lot more of that characteristics. And I think this is a very good whiskey to start off with. It's very smooth. It's got some nice subtle sweetness, but it's not just like a sweet bomb.
It's got very little heat to it.
Right.
Is it 80 proof? Is that sound right?
Yeah.
Is that
I
what it says?
I think that's what it says.
But so this is probably, you were mentioned earlier, this is the most expensive of the group, right?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It comes in a very nice gold box. Can you hold that up for the viewers there?
Real nice box.
Yeah. So
Can
we
you
got.
get this at a restaurant or a bar?
You cannot get it in the state of Ohio because of our liquor laws, and we're state controlled. But there's other states that you can purchase this at. I actually got this in Virginia at a military installation on Norfolk, is where I got this bottle at. So it's pretty unique. It's kind of fun because most people don't know about it. So I wouldn't say, you know, like its secondary value's not, you know, absorbing it. It's just something different. You know, it's exciting to see.
Yeah.
Comes pretty much like the Frank Sinatra, the first edition. It comes in a similar box and a similar bottle.
It comes in a 1 liter bottle that they don't normally do. Right.
Yeah, it's funny when you look at this, you know, you see it on a shelf, if you don't know what it is, we've talked about it before on the episodes before this, where we talk about like Jim Beam makes Booker's, we talk about some of these other distilleries that make all these other ones. Jack Daniels basically sticks to their name as far as I know. I don't know if they make any others that don't have Jack somewhere in it. Like we have Gentleman Jack on here and they have Jack Daniels right on it. This is one that I feel like a lot of people would probably pass by. They see it on the shelf and it says $88. And there's a lot of people I think they're going to walk by and say like, I'm not spending $90 on Jack Daniels. And you read it and you're like, you put it in maple barrels second? Like what the hell? Like it just doesn't seem like
it's like a crown maple or something.
Yeah, it's like kind of purity thing, the way they're marketing it. You know what I mean? Like you don't think about that. You think of it, you know, it's in virgin oak barrels and out the door, you know, eventually. You know what I mean? You don't like, let's mess with this a little bit more. And if you do, a lot of times I feel like that actually lowers the price point on the shelf.
I'll tell you what though, I bought Booker's for someone just purely because it was
Someone was talking about that on
because
the
it was in
comments.
a box, and I kind of made a nice gift. So if I think you're looking for
Put
a gift for
a
someone,
bow on it.
yeah, I'll put a bow on it.
Yeah, there
It's
you go.
definitely a great gift set, but I think, I mean, we have the gold, the Gentleman's Jack. We have a Jack Daniel's single barrel from 2006. Is that correct?
Yes.
That you found in Maryland, that I've tried personally, which is very good, and I'm excited for the rest of the table to try it. And we have our rye on. I know Nate's gonna be pissed, but we have our rye on for the first like cold evening of the year. So it's kind of funny, and yeah, that's gonna be fun to try because I haven't had it. I don't think any of us have had it.
Especially once you put Coke with
We
it.
could have a 2 liter of Coca-Cola for the.
Not with the single
Classic.
barrel.
Hey, I've got Coke out in the car. It's however you like it.
Fair enough.
But just a little quick snippet of history for this. For those that don't know, Jack Daniel's has been in the Brown-Forman Corporation, which Phil and I kind of discussed at the beginning. I thought there was kind of a selling issue. I thought they were accompanied by Maker's Mark and Jim Beam. And
This is the original ownership? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, so it was well. I mean, it was created, but then
They got bought out.
Brown-Forman. Yeah,
Okay.
Brown-Forman.
Okay.
There's pretty much nobody that owns the original
Their
family.
family,
Owns.
The only one I know of for sure is Willett bought it back. Is what
Yeah.
I understand. When we went to Willett,
Of their land, yeah.
oh,
They had their land and then sold it during Prohibition, from my knowledge, and then through 50 or 60 years or so, the family had came back and actually bought it,
yeah.
and then they
Not-
didn't.
I don't think it was the same still though.
No,
so,
No, okay.
But Jack Daniel's, it's a Tennessee whiskey, and it's actually it has a defined role to it, and I think that they're trying to distinguish themselves away from bourbon.
Well, I don't think they want to compete. I think they're doing it right. You know, they could actually release a bourbon product, and people at the distillery have probably, you know, did some test runs on, you know, not running it through the mellowing process and aging it in a barrel. But you're probably one of the few people in the world that's ever got to enjoy that Jack Daniel's unofficial, you know,
Yeah.
bourbon. So, and why would you want to compete with a group that's already, you know, well known? You know, they want to be a Tennessee sipping whiskey.
Yeah.
You know.
Can bourbon be made in Tennessee?
Bourbon can be made anywhere in the United States.
With the definition of bourbon, which if one of you guys can throw it out to the crowd.
Well, it's kind of, there's a lot of stipulations to it where people think that there's one thing that's actually on one of the criterias, and that's
Was Kentucky?
It
Well, I mean,
was
that's-
Kentucky.
okay.
My dad always told me that it was because it was made in like Bergen County in Kentucky, and that's
Like Shanghai.
obviously when we went on the tour, that's not true. And you know, there's a lot of people that know that that's not true anymore, and it can be only made in the United States. It has to be put into a new virgin oak barrel. It has to be. There's some people that don't think it needs to be aged for at least 2 years, but it does. It needs to be aged for at least 2 years. It can't come off the still higher than 160 proof, and it can't go into a barrel higher than 125.
So it's nothing to do with where the water's from or any of that.
The only thing that can be added to it is water. That's
But
one of
it
the
doesn't have to
things.
be water from Kentucky.
No,
or
no,
anything
no.
like that.
That's one of their selling points, though, is the pure Kentucky limestone. That's kind of like what they always talk
Yeah.
about.
That's what makes it the best or whatever.
And it has to be 51% corn.
Well, and that's what Kylie chimed in here, and Dustin's replying back, but it's the Bottle and Bond Act.
Yeah.
Is what she said that kind of defined it in 1897, is when they actually just, this is what bourbon is as opposed to all the other stories.
Yeah.
That, and people get that misconception about Kentucky because at one time, like 97% of the bourbon was from Kentucky.
Yeah.
So it was kind of synonymous with it. So then as it branched out, you know, then, you know, because there's good distilleries in Texas right now. You know, there's
High West.
there's High West, yeah, it's out in Colorado. I mean, you got MGP that's in Indiana, and there's Illinois, you know, that have distilleries that do source whiskey, you know. And
Distilleries in New York.
there's
and
distilleries right here in Columbus, Ohio, OYO and Watershed and Mill Street.
Mill Street.
Right.
There's another one, Todd Boss from the Cigar Band down in Chillicothe was showing me something, and I'd have to, my phone's recording, but he showed me one that was, what was that? If Todd's watching, chime in, because it was something. There's like a couple of I don't know if they're distilleries or they're just bottling areas, or if it's just a Columbus company, but it was something where I had not recognized the label.
There's a distillery down near Springfield, it's kind of cool. It's called Indian Creek. That's where that Andy's number 5 was from.
There's one down on the side of the river by Kosai.
Say no because I didn't like it.
I believe there's a small
That might be it.
Yeah.
Because it's on the bottle, he sent me a picture of it, and on the bottle it actually said Columbus, Ohio, and it wasn't Ohio, it wasn't Watershed, it was something else.
Right down on the side of the river by Kosai.
Is that right?
Downtown, yeah, but I don't know the name. They released something. It was on one of our Facebook pages that we're a group of members of, and I remember it, but I don't know much about it.
If they're not sourcing it out, though, I found a lot of like the other distilleries, they're like doing, what is it, the pressure aging?
Yeah, like that Cleveland brand.
Everything I've tried with that so far, and challenge all the viewers and listeners out there, let us know if there's something that has been pressure aged that you think stands up to the more traditional aging, because everything I've tried, and I don't know about you guys, but
it just do a blind taste test.
Yeah, it just doesn't taste the same.
I'm gonna say it tastes like doo-doo, and I'm a huge
Hey,
Cleveland.
come on, Phil.
We're
on.
Yeah, language.
Yeah, language.
Sorry.
I
I forgot the bourbon monster's not here, so
yeah. Bring him out.
yeah, I just think it's really tough in my opinion, and it's all subjective. But I think it's hard to replicate something that takes time, and there's a reason why. There's a reason why the Scottish haven't, or the Irish haven't, had pressure cooker, infuser, flux capacitor things to do it, because
flux capacitor.
They're pretty good at what they do, and if there was a different one, if there was a process, especially with all the Suntory and all these other Asian market places, they learned the technique from the Scott, and they developed, and they're getting real big. You would think that they would be like, hey, let's try this, and you get small people, you got to commend them for trying. But I mean, I was down in Tennessee, ironically, and I was seeing that Cleveland whiskey. They've got like 3 primary. They got the Christmas, the black, and the brown bottle. And this liquor store was selling them for $14 a bottle, and I think they retail for $40. So they basically were giving.
That's a good deal.
Oh, I bought a couple of them to give them away.
I mean, I think there's something to be said for like the aging process, like you said, Phil, and doing it the traditional way. But what I will say about Jack is that there's always, I think, just one word encompasses Jack Daniels, and it's smooth. I think that's always been a big thing for them, is just being smooth, and it has to deal with that charcoal filtering and their mash bill and how they do things down there. I've always wanted to go down to the distillery, but it is a long way down there from Columbus, Ohio.
It's pretty good if you get a chance to go down there. They changed their laws because Lynchburg, Tennessee was a dry county since Prohibition, and then
Moore County,
and they could sell bottles, and then I think in the last like 6 or 7 years they can actually do samplings, tastings.
So really?
Yeah, so now you can do a tasting at the distillery. Prior to that, you couldn't even do a sampling. You could go in the gift store and you could buy stuff. So you could get like the Frank Sinatras, the Rabbits, because they were considered like limited edition collector's bottles. They don't even sell regular number 7 there. So like if you were from...
This is still today, you can't buy alcohol in Lynchburg.
That is correct. You go down to... But they do sell bottles that are considered collectors.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think they voted that? You think...
Religious reasons, probably, too.
Religious? But they make it... I was thinking, like, if that's all there really was, like, as a major... No, I think as a major industry...
Most of those counties that are dry, it's due to religious...
That's carried over?
Yeah.
I would think also, I don't know, maybe that there is partly religious, but it's... If that's, like, one of the biggest companies in town, like, they don't want you drinking the product.
My
to
question
a point where you're not showing up to work. You know what I mean? Like alcoholism was a problem there.
No, they give away free alcohol. I think it is.
Oh, perfect.
Somebody would have
kids and everyone.
Somebody, people that work there.
Oh.
I don't know. It's been a while since I to throw it out 100%. But Prohibition, a lot of people don't realize that we live right down the street from Westerville, and that's where they say arguably
I grew up there.
Prohibition started, and they didn't start serving alcohol till like 3 or 4 years ago. There was no wine shops.
Longer than that, but it was.
Yeah, so
Old Bag of Nails was, I think, the one that would really put it on the map more recently, and that was in the mid 2000s.
Yeah, so they couldn't. The biggest thing was they couldn't get any businesses to come in there because if you was at a steakhouse or Applebee's or a wine shop, and Westerville's a very nice community, very beautiful.
Absolutely.
And they got people that would enjoy that type of thing and come in. So and that's here recently. The story they'll tell you at the distillery is something on the lines of when Prohibition come back to overturn a law, you have to have people to vote to overturn it.
Right.
Well, there's not enough people that live in the county or the area that go vote to overturn it. So they
Is it on the docket most elections?
I don't live down there.
We're asking.
So, but then I think after a while they didn't want to repeal it because it does kind of have that mystique to it. And they sell their stuff all over the world. I've been deployed all over the world, and I can tell you that you'll go anywhere, Middle East, Asia. I mean, and you always see Jack Daniels, Maker's Mark, and Johnny Walker Black.
Yeah, those are the three.
So, Cran, I got a question for you regarding FDA and things like that. If you've noticed over the past few years, Jack's starting to advertise on television now. But I don't recall many years ago that you could advertise liquor on TV. You know if that's new?
Liquor, I don't know. I know the big one that was taken away from all the print ads, especially, but maybe also all forms of media was tobacco. I mean, there was a big, unless it's an industry-specific publication. So obviously, like in Cigar Aficionado and all the other, like Cigar Snob and all the other publications, you can advertise cigars and such. I think you can advertise cigarettes, but overall, you couldn't do any of that. I don't know if liquor was ever taken off. I don't know that history there, but you're right. I think it's just that they've been going bigger on advertising with it more recently.
Jack Daniels is partner with the NBA now.
Well, yeah, and Jack Daniels, Jim Beam's with a lot of baseball organizations.
Yeah.
Phil gave me, and I've got it inside, it's a Cubs commemorative Jim Beam bottle. I just saw that the Red Sox have one as well this year.
They did a Blue Jackets one.
And they've got a Blue Jacket. So, I mean, I don't know if there was a change in law there. The big one was the tobacco where you couldn't advertise, so you don't see, a Marlboro ad anywhere. You don't see, like Joe Camel, remember those ads where it was so big?
Used to collect those, they're cool ads.
Yeah, so I know you can't do it with tobacco, but I don't know about liquor. And obviously, beer's been doing it for forever.
Well, we're drinking all this stuff, so what do you guys think of it so far? Who's on I'm on a Gentleman Jack.
I'm still on the original here.
The gold?
The gold. I like it quite a bit, and it's bringing out sweetness from the cigar and everything else. It's not what I thought it would be together, but it's going nicely.
I get a lot of, it's almost like a creamy, like nuttiness from Jack Daniels. That's what I get from it. But my thing that I always have with it is, and this is why I love the single barrel so much, and then the single barrel proof that we tried, Phil, is that I think it's almost too smooth for me, like regular.
I know that's
Jack.
why most people can't see it, but that's why the bottle's like half gone.
Yeah, I'm staying out of that tonight.
I had to cut you off.
Yeah, for sure.
Did he drink all that?
A good majority of it. I think he left a little in his glass, and I drank it when he wasn't looking. But thank you, by the way.
That's perfect. No, that's good. I like Jack Daniels. I mean, it was one of those things you were mentioning, the three major ones: Jack, Jim, Johnny. I always went back to Jack Daniels on the rocks. Like Spencer was saying, you had that the other night. I do get some similar characteristics. This is way above and beyond the regular Jack. I don't do Jack Daniels neat. I can't do Jack, Makers, any of those neat. I can, but I'd rather not.
What about Jameson? Can you do Jameson neat?
Once or twice. I can do Jameson neat, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. It is. It is interesting. No, I don't know. There's like I think Jameson is smoother all the way through to the finish, where normal Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, Johnny Black, other Johnnies, obviously you drink neat, or I do. But some of these I just don't, there's like an aftertaste that kind of hits you a little raw.
I think if someone's trying to get into bourbon, Jack's not a bad place to start. can kind of ease your way into
Not
it.
at all.
I think it's ironic because I think I collect and I drink a lot, and I've been fortunate that I've sampled some really high-end stuff, rare stuff. Most of us all started with those, like the three wise men and stuff, because when we were in college or we turned 21, I mean, we're not going to go into a bar, even if we love scotch or we found out that we love scotch, we're not going to go in there and be like, hey, I want a $30 scotch when I'm in college, or
No.
I got an $8 an hour job. We're going to go somewhere that says, hey, Jack and Cokes are $3, you know, and you're like, oh man, you know, or a shot of Jack or a shot of Maker's Mark or Jim Beam is $2-3, you know. I'm talking several years ago.
Yeah.
But you know, so
Last weekend, bro.
So yeah, so
Spring break, bro.
Spring break, bro.
so you know what I'm saying. So I think
do,
like
yeah.
a lot of people get started on that, and then I'm kind of like with you, Steve. As much as I hate to say it, I've got a nice collection of Jack Daniel's collector bottles. You know, pretty much all the same juice. You know, they changed the proof years in and out, but same mash bill. Maker's Mark is the same way, you know, up until the last 4 or 5 years, it was pretty much the same mash build, same things. It's just the bottle was limited, different colored wax.
Yeah.
And I struggle a little bit going back with a regular Jack or a regular Maker's. I do, you know, go to my roots, you know, but there's other stuff that I can get for a little bit more, or they have a product that's a little bit different that I've grown to enjoy a little better. So I'm in the same boat with you on that, you know, whether it's on the rocks or neat, you know.
What, Spencer?
I'd like a water as well.
Oh, you would? Okay.
We can take a break and we'll grab some water if need be. No, I don't know. Jack Daniels, I've always,
Is your glass empty?
they've done a great job, at least in the States and everything. You get that Frank Sinatra tie-in, right? I mean, that was a big thing that he probably got paid good money.
Or you just liked it.
I know, I mean, from what you read and see in documentaries, I mean, he definitely did like it. I mean, it was one of his go-tos was Jack on the Rocks.
Frank
Or
might
is
have
he,
had a drinking problem.
He was really good at it. I don't know if it was a problem.
He can afford it.
Dean Martin, I heard, actually didn't drink.
You know,
most of
Dean
his
Martin, a lot
career.
of times when he was on stage and acting like he was a buffoon, was not drinking.
He was drinking
I don't think he was drinking at all.
apple juice.
Was it really?
Yeah, from what I hear, it was always apple juice, especially towards the end of his career.
They say that about Ron White, too.
No, I think Ron White's got
I
a
think
real
he's
drinking problem.
yeah, he's hammered.
Yeah.
No, he might actually when he's
By the way,
performing.
he's got a great comedy special on Netflix if you haven't seen it, and it came out a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago.
That was
Fantastic.
the.
Ron White.
That was
He'll be here next week.
Alicia and I watched him. He came to town in February, and it was the skit that he had done on the show he has on Netflix. But
I've actually done that. I ran a VFW for 2 years. So, you know, with Veterans Day, you know, coming up, you know, it kind of made me think of that. And I'd go in there and, you know, just like any like private club, you know, everybody's always excited to see you, you know, buy you drinks and that. And it got to the point to where, you know, I'd be there all night long, you know, got to count the money and stuff. And I had a bottle of vodka that I poured water in it, and then I also had a bottle of cheap bourbon that I put apple juice in it, and the bartenders knew, like, when I gave them, you know, the wink wink, that meant like, all right, I'm done. I need the water, or I need the, you know, so I'd buy a round of shots, and they would all get the bourbons, the, you know,
Yeah.
the whiskeys, the Jacks, the Jims, and the Jamesons, and I'd either get apple juice or vodka so I could drive
Top
home.
bartenders have been doing that for years.
I got a different story about that, but I like
just
like
the
yourself.
hot ones.
Wow, bro.
So
I appreciate you calling.
I was including him in the group of top bartenders.
I wasn't bartending.
Oh.
I was just the manager, you could say.
Sure.
You know, but I appreciate that. I do think I'm very attractive.
No, I mean, they can see it on the camera. You don't have to say that. We're live on
Yeah, no,
Facebook
sitting beside him, it does.
Diminish.
Yeah, a little bit, but that's all right.
Go on, Phil.
I did have to shave for the military, so I lost my manliness a little
quick
bit.
vodka story if you want to get somebody good.
Perfect.
Take a
Kids, write this
college
down.
after a rough night. I'm assuming everyone had Britas back in the day.
Never.
Never had a Brita.
Nope.
I have one currently. We didn't have it back in college.
Okay.
I don't think it was
So
a big
after
thing
a long
back in my day.
after a long night, you pour yourself a tall glass of Brita water. So we would pour vodka
Did your parents
into the
pay for
Brita.
college?
Yes.
I was gonna say, 'cause
We had Britas. We came from a well-off family with Britas.
Your last name is Britta?
Spencer.
Water CVS.
I can just see it now, Britta, right across the front.
Do that.
I'll
Take that sponsorship. Yeah.
We pour a little vodka in the Brita instead of the water, and my buddy took a chug of what he thought was water the next day, and it was vodka, and it was a rude awakening for him.
He had no clue.
He had
just,
no clue.
just kept drinking it.
It was a rougher morning than he wanted to have.
I've grabbed the wrong drink before back in the day. It was water and there was like leftover whiskey in the morning.
Have you ever accidentally had like dip spit or anything like that?
Oh,
Ever?
No, I never have. I've been around people that have done that, which it never goes well.
Yeah, it's not
It's a
supposed
clean,
to go well.
clean up, yeah.
Clean up.
I remember I was 17, not saying that I should have been drinking alcohol. I thought it was
It's underrated.
Yeah, wait till 18.
it was a Diet Coke. I thought, and reached up and grabbed a Natty Light can that I thought was mine, and yeah, it was not mine, and that did not go well.
I miss Natty Light. It's a good beer back in the day.
I think it's still around.
You think it's alright?
I think
Did you
it's
see they
still
came out with a
brewed.
72 pack of Natty Light?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
a row pack. Of
It's like
Natty
a
Light.
hexagon.
Yeah.
Looking
Call
two
it a
people
bro
here.
pack. Yeah,
crazy.
that's appropriate marketing right there. Is bro pack.
They know their market.
You realize
They do.
I got a lot of
And
friends.
it's
like that.
$10.99 too. That's the great part.
I got a lot of friends
Too much.
that work at the brewery here,
Yeah.
and then they
And
just
after.
distill it. They work at the distributors and stuff. My family works there. Actually, you go down south, like South Carolina, North Carolina. Natty Light is considered a premium beer, and Bud Light is what we consider, like the college beer. So it's pretty unique. How
Where
you
is
go
this?
South Carolina. So
Yeah,
it's pretty.
They're a few years behind.
Moonshine country.
Although
Natty
they-
Ice.
It might be like Pabst, where it's like a hipster beer or something like that. You order Natty Light at the bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just come out with a new PBR Light.
Why?
PBR can be too heavy for some people.
Seen it at
That is
Kroger's
a
the
heavy
other day.
beer. That's a heavy beer.
Was that as we're going
Oh,
through
sorry.
the
Are
night?
we talking about bourbon?
Yeah.
Oh.
You're supposed to be or
Uh-huh.
whiskey.
Right.
As
Did you
we're-
actually think that we were going to stay on track at all?
Not with you.
Is it possible to, Phil, if this is too personal, to kind of hear a quick story about? I heard you mention that you've been in the military. Or you are still in the military.
Yeah, actually,
Great.
Turn it off while I go ahead. Tell the story.
No. I'm saving it here before we get into that here.
Is Veterans Day Monday?
it's Sunday, but it's observed
So-
on Monday.
Do you like or do you accept when people say thank you for your service, or how? does
Wait
that
for
work?
it.
Wait.
So you asked him about it. Ready?
Yeah, whenever.
So if you don't feel comfortable talking about it, I completely understand. But I heard you mention a couple times, and I see your hat that you were or are in the military. With Veterans Day coming up, could you briefly tell your story to the people?
No, yeah, and I'm very proud to people to say thank you. I got a funny saying that I say. So this is
Fuck you.
no.
My phone is.
No, go ahead. So a lot of people, that say, thank you for your service, and I say thank you, and I say, did you serve, and the majority of the masses haven't served.
Less than 1%, and it's going down.
Yep. And I always say, well, thank you for speaking English and paying taxes, because it's funny, and you say, oh my goodness, but what makes us American citizens? It's the fact that we speak English and we pay taxes, and it has nothing to do.
Why do you say the speak English part?
Because we're America, and that's our native tongue here. That's not saying you can't speak. My family come from Germany and Wales, but here in America we are taught English in school, right?
Mhm.
So that's our form of vocabulary and spelling and stuff. So when you're here, that's not to say that you can't, "Und sprechen Sie Deutsch, das ist gut," yeah,
No, it's like a weird term.
It's not saying that you can't, enjoy your heritage and where your family's from, but we are here in America. So I always tell people that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, thank you," because what really makes us Americans? We live in America and we pay taxes. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with color, religion, and where you come
Race,
from.
anything like that?
Yeah, it's actually really simple. So yeah, when people say that, I say thank you, because I'm proud to wear the uniform and go out and bear the burden to keep us free. And there's a lot of men and women in the past there's people that have made the ultimate sacrifice. So I'm very thankful. And I also tell people too, it takes a village to make our country great. you guys, when I'm deployed, you know, you guys send me care packages. You make sure that, you know, my wife, you know, or your girlfriend or your boyfriend, whoever you are, is taken care of. If there's needs that need to be made, you know, that you got kids, you know, so it takes more than just me, you know. Yeah, I'm away, I'm making a sacrifice in a different realm, but you guys are also sacrificing too, because you're helping out with the family. You're still back here paying taxes, so I can have the equipment and the food and all that to do that. So, you know, in a long roundabout way, yes, I appreciate when people say, you know, thank you. It's a nice gesture.
Without going political, especially with the elections and everything like that yesterday, when was the last time you were overseas, or when was the last time you served?
Well, what was it, like 3 months ago? I was in Israel for a month,
okay.
And then my son is 16 months, so he was born. He was born 16 days before I got back.
Oh my gosh.
So a year and a half. We'll say a year and a half. I was overseas in Qatar, but went around to different countries. You know, so. So
does it bother, without going one way or another? Does it affect the military that our current president has not visited the military since he's been in office?
You don't want to go political?
I'm just curious as far as the
we do
military.
have to go over cigars.
I know. I was.
So
because he's the first president not to visit our troops yet, and he's pro-military things like that.
Yeah, a strong part of his platform.
Right.
Yeah.
He's the only one who has.
Here's the thing that I always that's unique about that question is, so you work in some type of business. Obviously, I know with these three gentlemen.
I'm in sales.
So sales, and you know, like, and I'll kind of point Steve out. You know, Steve manages a very fine cigar shop, and then he's in collaboration with the owner, and they do a cigar, right? The BS cigar, right?
Sure.
That we enjoy, and so. When you don't know Steve, you know, there's certain things that you don't know about the cigar, and you know, and if you live in California and you listen to the podcast and you're like, oh, I hear about this cigar, it's really tough to make a comment when you don't know somebody. Yeah, he's the president of the United States, but when he goes behind closed doors, I mean, he's in these meetings that have, you know, very high security things, and he's got to make a decision for the whole country. It's really tough, you know, to say, well, you know, what do you think? Because the argument would be like, well, if he's behind closed doors making sure that I'm getting body armor, you know, and getting the stuff, would I rather him be doing stuff to make me safe and the country safe than coming over and giving me a hooray, hoorah, and a pat on the ass?
And then back on the plane.
And then back on the plane.
Yeah.
I mean, so, you know, they said, I know this, like, it was kind of this is a joking point, but it's really factual. You know, it's like when the Bears didn't make the Super Bowl that year, that when Obama.
Which year?
But they had a chance. They had a chance that they had a chance to go, but they said that you know, if President Obama would have went, that would have cost the government $1 million.
Oh, I remember that.
Which, I mean, and I'm just joking. That's not a political thing. That's any president. You know, so $1 million to fly him to a football stadium, to secure him, to make sure he's safe. You know, but that's the price of doing business. You know, being out in public. So there's cost to that too. You know, that you don't necessarily see. So I like where our economy's going.
Yeah.
I like
I'm just talking about just pure morale, for morale reasons.
I mean,
does it matter one way or another?
I'm pretty excited that, you know, he put Mathis in the position that he is, because Mad Dog Mathis is an ass kicker, and he's put a lot of people in a position to keep us safe. So, you know, and then ultimately people vote. You know, so that's what makes us good. You know, my opinion's only good, but the masses of people voted him in.
I think it affects different people different ways. I mean, obviously it'd be great to see that face and see that person there. I think it's anything really, but as long as the job is getting done where it benefits you, and this is business, it's politics, everything else. I think as long as it's making the everyday better, then it's kind of like, I don't care if I ever see the CEO of the company. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I just feel like as a nation, we're just more disconnected from the military than we probably ever have.
I think it's a rebellion based on politics. That's what I'll say.
Well,
I'd say we need to watch where we're going with this.
It's tough. I mean, that's
Probably don't want to have any.
No, I mean politics, religion. We can always. I have no problem.
Which religion is the best, Steve?
Bears fans. Yeah, I mean Bears fans probably.
Well, see, I would argue. I'd say Browns.
Well, so where I was going, Phil, when they
you gotta have a lot of faith.
Steve briefly told me who was going to be on the podcast, and I go, okay, cool. Me and him have nothing in common. But
you'd be surprised though.
Right, here's where I'm going with it. But just to get to spend some time with you, to get to know you, all we can say is thank you for your service. But we're not as connected to your fight. My day is not nearly as difficult as your given day when you're out serving.
But I would argue that because we all wear different shoes, and I don't walk a day in your footsteps nor mine. So there's obstacles and challenges that you have to overcome personally that maybe I would struggle with, and vice versa. That's why this, the Whiskey Wednesday started, and we're in episode 40 here. It's because we're sitting here, and it's funny how you say, well, I don't know Phil and nothing in common. I can sit here and tell you that we got two things in common. We're enjoying a great cigar. We're enjoying some good whiskey, and more importantly, we're here with friends. Bullshitting.
Well, that's all. I mean, it's kind of friends of friends too.
Yeah.
So there is a connection there.
It's just the big thing is you got to take the time to get to know somebody. You got to give a shit.
Got to give a shit. You got to be willing to listen.
Got to.
It's a good lesson.
Yeah.
Cigars?
Yeah. What were we smoking here, Steve?
So just real quick. I don't want to do it real quick. Never mind. But that was actually I like that subject. Don't get me wrong. Like as one of the hosts here, it's one of those things that I have no problem going down the road of politics, religion, or I'd call it high-end topics when it comes to discussion. I mean, there's a lot of shows out there, a lot of news networks. There's a lot of.
But it's not necessarily discussion. It's discussion on some of those. Some of those is just trying to win a battle versus a discussion.
Right, but when you're doing something, the reason I was saying that as one of the hosts is that I don't want to dive down that rabbit hole too far. I don't think we would in this crowd, but it's one of those things that once certain people that might be viewing it, they might want to start chiming in, and it's like, that's not really what we're looking for as a political debate. Not saying you two were, but it's one of those things, yeah.
He's not afraid of anything.
No, I'm not afraid. How's that whiskey treating you? No, I'm saying is that it's not afraid, it's just trying to stay on topic of what we're doing, you know what I mean?
That's why I don't like when you do that.
I also...
Well, I'm not afraid. I absolutely would be happy to have a religious podcast.
Have you ever had someone from the military on before?
Che was
on.
Okay.
Che was on.
And that was cool.
To be curious, just because you really don't... I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I know the subjects about hobbies and things like that a little later on.
Yeah.
One of my hobbies happens to be listening to podcasts. I probably listen to 5 to 10 a day. I'm in the car 8 hours a day.
Yeah, you're traveling
and
a lot.
podcasts, fill my head. So that's, instead of reading and things like that, it's podcasts. That's kind of how I get my information. So when I have someone in front of me that I don't truly talk to on an everyday basis, I want to know kind of where their head's at.
Well,
not that you're speaking on behalf of the entire military.
See, and that's the
but
thing.
I just want to know your personal experience.
I wanted to chime in on that real quick, and then I'll let you move on.
Go ahead.
The important thing is I still wear the uniform, and I fight for all people.
So you represent
I represent the United States Air Force. So, I voice my opinion by voting, just like everybody should. So I got to tread lightly when I say something because I don't know who's out there, and I can't make a generalization for the whole military.
You're not supposed to speak for everybody. Yeah.
Well, but you got to be careful when you do get onto the social media and the news and stuff like that, because then they'll just latch on that. Well, this is what he said, and I'm a reflection. But the important thing is to go vote, which we just did the other day.
In 2 days, we got to vote.
Yeah, it's so that's the big thing, and then the vote says how people will think and feel, whatnot.
Gotcha.
So with wearing a uniform still, a retired guy could probably voice his opinion a little bit more, and I tell people again, like I said, I fight for the 50% of the people that agree with me, but I also fight for the 50% of the people that don't agree with me. That's what makes America great.
You got a real level head, man. I like it.
That's what I like about it. I mean, same thing at a lot of cigar shops. That's one of the things you try to steer clear of is religion and politics. Those two things, it's just because a lot of people don't have that level head. I think everyone in the garage, a lot of people listening, but I mean, you don't even have to look at the election results, because all you have to do, if you have a Facebook account, you log onto your feed and you scroll through, you can tell who won. And a lot of people that are very vocal are vocal both sides of it, but it's like, I saw people that had moved out of Ohio, and they're saying, "Oh, Ohio, you screwed it up again," and you're like, okay. That's why it's not about being afraid of the topics. It's so easy to talk about for a long time, and it is I think this whole show, other than when we talk about facts with the bourbon or the whiskeys and the cigars, it's a complete editorial. I mean, it's complete opinion based. If you like what we have to say, or if you don't agree with it, as long as you can walk away from it or listen to it for I don't call it just entertainment, but for the basis of where it's coming from, I think it's fine. But as soon as you start getting annoyed, or you start getting bent out of shape because you were watching it for one thing, and now all of a sudden it's like you feel like you're getting that pushed on you, that's where I just don't want people to do that.
That's a tough one, see, because everyone listens to it for different reasons.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And you and Jake don't agree on every topic.
Absolutely.
And when you guys don't agree,
They don't?
What was the one episode? It had to be 20 episodes ago where you guys actually got into it.
We were talking about college.
Yeah, you remember it very clearly.
Yeah.
Tuition.
Yeah.
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 I enjoyed that thoroughly. Now I'm sure it was heated in here, but
I
enjoy those discussions too.
It's funny because
as long as you're not saying it with malice, you're trying to hear the other one's point. You're not saying you're wrong, name calling.
Well, that's the problem, is because when whiskey gets involved, you're not.
Allegedly.
Like after a point, you don't hear each other, and then it's just like I said one thing and you said the other, and it's kind of like you try to listen, and it's
you're just waiting for your time to talk.
Well, exactly, and then finally when you get to talk, and then you say no, but what I was saying, that's what it became, and that's what I didn't.
Well, I don't even think you have to throw the whiskey part in it, because me and Jake and Steve, we've been fortunate that they come over to my house. It's kind of cool. We're talking about the military aspect here. These guys support me, and I'm a new father. Come back, and these guys come over to my house, and my little kid, Steve, always wears Chuck Taylors, and my kid loves Chuck Taylors, and he just always plays at his feet. And these guys just accept my family. We have a good time. And we talk about things, and it's ironic when you go to the political world or whatever you're talking about. I say two things. Whether you got group A or group B, you're never going to like one group 100% and the other group 0%. It's like 70-30, and then you take from that. But then to go back to your comment about the alcohol, I think it does. I mean, there will be doctors that say, it does change you and stuff. But I think the biggest problem is when you get excited, aggressive, whatever words you want to use, you turn your ears off. And when you turn your ears off, then you're not listening. And when you're not listening, then it makes it really hard to try to understand what the other person's saying, and then not make them understand what you're saying, but just say what you want to say. They don't have to understand it. That's what everybody thinks. It's like, I gotta win. I gotta win you. I gotta win you. I gotta win you.
I'm not trying to convert people.
Yeah. It's just
a lot of people do though.
A lot of people. They want to win, and it's more of just like, it's just like, I want to tell you what I think, and then you tell me what you think, and then you walk off with a little bit of knowledge, and you say, oh, I understand, Phil. I don't have to agree with you.
You don't have to agree with me.
Yeah, but we still respect each other.
Exactly.
And I think that's where our society kind of is.
Man, you're with the language, Phil.
Man, I know.
All right, so we're smoking the CLE Prieto.
We were smoking this.
You are still.
I think we all are still a little bit.
Yeah, really good, really good. I switched to the gentleman's jack. Have you guys?
It definitely brings out different notes of the cigar too, for me.
I think it went well with the rye. Nook said that earlier, and I wanted to try it, and I think that was the.
Have you tried this rye?
I haven't. And I like
okay.
it. I like it.
Oh, you just did?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you what,
I like it better than. I'll say I like it better than the gold. I like it better than the gentleman's jack, but I don't think anything can beat this as the single barrel.
Well, the rye is new. I don't know much about it. I've tried it before when I was in Indiana with my buddy who is a huge jack collector, and for the bang for the buck, it is a phenomenal.
It's a good rye.
$22.
It's a good rye.
It's on sale. State of Ohio, $5 off. It's $20. I was kind of in awe.
It's got a
You
good
guys
color.
know I'm not a rye guy.
Next.
You guys had the Woodford rye?
Yes.
Yes.
What do you think?
Good.
It's delicious.
It's delicious?
It's
Very
one of
good.
the best fries in the market.
Really?
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I put it.
I love wood
I
cuts.
put
That's
it
good.
as second to. I'm sorry, not. I put it third. My favorite ryes are Willet Rye, the 3-year, the 4-year,
I like the 3-year.
Midwinter Night's Dram,
Yeah.
and then by High West, and then
Is that the High West Double Rye? I really like that one.
it's a blend. It's a pretty cool blend, and they do different blends depending on the scene. They call them scenes, and the acts. It's based on. We set it on.
Yeah.
We set it on. It was in the teens, but you can go back and listen to that. But it was cool. But cigar, CLE Prieto.
See, we've got a lot of options of the whiskey out here, so it's easy to get back on that. But I mean, CLE Prieto, we got Nook still chiming in, so that's good. But CLE is for Christian Iroa, and the Iroa family owned Camacho for a long time. They've been in Honduras for a long time. They've got a hell of an operation, really, as far as one of the things that Nook will tell you, and I like this about it, is that they've gotten to the point where they are of the same standards as like Dole farming for like the fruits and vegetables and everything. Where like it's one of those things where if you take down a tree, they put another one up. They're self-sustaining. They're trying to have zero impact on the environment. Doing that in the tobacco world in a third world country.
Do they advertise that?
They don't. I don't think in major.
cigar?
I think it's amazing. I think it's an amazing part of it, but they don't really boast it because I think they're really trying to boast the cigars themselves.
CLE stand for anything?
Christian, I forget what his middle name is, and Nook will probably chime in, but it's Christian Iroa.
So nothing to do with Cleveland.
Nothing to do with Cleveland, but it does work well in our market for that.
Is it all in your mind right now?
Yeah.
Tonight?
Actually, that's why I bought the
That's why I like
cigar
it.
for
Yeah.
the first time.
Yeah,
So CLE, you
I
got
like it.
Christian, who's been in the shop. He's great. He's an extremely intelligent guy, very sharp, very personable. But this is something that is way off of their normal production. So Asylum Cigars is also part of CLE, and Tom Lazuka runs that. He's been at the Smoking Tent event. It's Louis or Louise. I don't know how you say it.
Any update on the 10th event, Mr. Crane?
We'll get there. But with the cigar, it's like talking to children, like jumping around a little bit.
But you know what?
This is
That's-
actual cigar shop talk.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you know what I like
Hang on
about
there, Phil.
I like this.
Phil,
It's
the
a good
cigar has.
It's a good cigar.
What does it have on it?
It's damn good.
All right.
See,
So the cigar has
White wrapper.
Connecticut broadleaf.
if it was shitty, we would be talking about the shitty cigar, but we're enjoying it so much that we're just chilling.
Someone tell me about the cigar.
Well, I'm going to tell you that.
Does it have a Maduro wrapper? What's the wrapper?
I don't know. I was trying to get to it. What do we got on the cigar? What do you guys think?
Let's ask Nook. Can he call in? Oh,
No.
So we're not there yet.
Is this considered a box cut or what type
Box
of
press, yeah.
box press?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Would you consider it full body?
I would say it's medium full, yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, as a customer at a cigar shop, I'd come in and buy this one.
You would buy this one?
Yeah, and that's the important part.
It's what, $8.95?
So since we get into the details of the whiskey, this was the number 17 cigar for Cigar Aficionado last year. It's got a Connecticut broadleaf wrapper on it and Nicaraguan filler and binder.
Thanks, Nook. He said it.
All right.
He said it on the comment.
Focus.
Oh, I was. It's a good cigar, you're right. Let's go. What else do you guys want to talk about?
Like, I'll let you talk about the cigar.
I
Please.
would love that, but we're past that. It's a good cigar. It's got broadleaf, Nicaraguan filler and binder.
It's about $8.95.
It's about $8.50, $8.95, absolutely, for the Robusto size, absolutely.
Would this be, because I'm way more of a whiskey guy, I do smoke a lot of cigars, but
Yeah.
I always come in and I just ask you guys what are new. For somebody coming into the shop, is this something that is new to this year? Is it something that they...
It's been out for a couple of years, yeah, absolutely. It's been out for a couple of years. They did a Chile as well, which is going to be the lighter shade.
Is that the one with like the blue on it?
Yeah,
Yep.
looks very similar, but it's lighter shade. It's got blue on it, absolutely.
Still got a foot wrapper.
They're using some Honduran tobacco, which is what they're known for.
I like the presentation on that, like the light blue.
Absolutely.
That kind of, the blue, I mean, I know it's more about the cigar, but you see with your eyes when you first going in and with that sleeve on it and that blue, that's why I bought it. I was like, okay, I'm going to try this.
Yeah, it's a good cigar.
Do you know most of your things from the sales reps that talk to you, or do you do some research online about all these types of cigars?
Both, absolutely. They'll tell us a lot of it initially, and then That's nice. It says Christian, who's the owner of the company, also loves Jack Daniels. His go-to spirit is Jack Daniels.
Perfect.
Yeah, baby.
I honestly always thought the Prieto wrapper was blue as well, like a dark blue, navy blue.
The band?
Yeah, it's black.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with Phil that the Chile definitely has a bright presentation and it catches your eye because it's almost like a baby blue. Same wrap, or same band.
Yeah. This is an extremely dark broadleaf, though.
For sure.
Do you try to, because you both work at a cigar shop, do you guys try to smoke a new product as soon as possible when you get one in?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Gotta try it.
I didn't know what else he was gonna say after that, but I was gonna let him go first, then me. But
Go ahead.
I think Steve does it, and then I normally do it after him to get his thoughts. Some of the times when we get some things in that are new, we don't really want to try it because it's either we don't want to, if it's a limited release or something like that, we don't want to take away from a customer and getting basically a profit off that and someone else enjoying it. So sometimes we won't smoke a new cigar that just comes out, but if it's something that's within, what would you say, like under like $13 or something?
As long as it's not limited edition.
Yeah, like we're okay.
Very small production, small batch. A lot of people in the bourbon industry know that. If it's small batch, we get it in. It's kind of like if you worked in a liquor store. It's like typically you wouldn't necessarily, I mean, it's different, I guess, in state stores, but if you have something come in, then you're not going to grab, 6 of the bottles that are hard to get. If you were trying to push it out to the customer, is how I look at that.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah. These guys are known for their Honduran Corojos, the authentic stuff that they have really, really taken care of since they brought over the seed from Cuba.
What's a Corojo?
It's a seed strand of tobacco.
So that's the actual leaf inside of the cigar?
That's the actual leaf. That's the seed. Is a Corojo.
So there's only one leaf inside of this one? Or
No. So what I'm saying is that it's all Nicaraguan filler and binder, Connecticut broadleaf. So it's completely different than what the Aroa family's known for. Julio, his dad, actually was really big in this Honduran Corojo. So you have this authentic Corojo that even the Corojo 99 from Cuba, they actually have done some things to it to make it withstand the blue mold they had issues with. In Honduras, they didn't have that issue. So that's why this is such a big thing for them, is that they've branched off of that, but they're known for having that really, really true Corojo that exists in the world.
There's 3 leaves that make a blend of a cigar, right? No, normally they're either
Three
different.
components.
3 components is what
Yeah, the wrapper, binder, and filler.
Yeah.
And what gives it the most taste, I guess?
It depends who you ask, I think, but I think a lot of the strength comes from the filler, and then with the wrapper, obviously it's part of the presentation. But I mean, it's all the components. People give out different percentages, but I mean, it's just something that you definitely have to. I think it all mixes. So you can literally, if you have a double binder, for example, and you switch one of those leaves and keep the core the same, you keep the wrapper the same, it's going to change the flavor profile.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people say the wrapper takes up most of it as far as the flavor profile, and I disagree with that just from a sheer numbers game. But a lot of times you'll be using the filler leaves not for as much the flavor, but for strength and how it all blends together.
Gotcha.
More like ingredients into a recipe.
I always find that's unique with about anything. I do enjoy cigars and the whiskey, and it's like we were talking before the podcast. You're talking about where whiskey's from and all that. You could take the same corn seed and plant it in Texas and plant it in Florida and plant it in Ohio, but the minerals in the ground are going to be different. The rainfall is going to be different. The sun's going to be different. And you could do every step exactly the same per se, and it would taste a little bit different, so it's unique.
You can literally move it from one lot to the other on a farm and it would taste different.
Yeah, so it
produces different yield.
Yeah, so that's what's always exciting about cigars and even whiskeys, like the small batch or the rares and stuff, is like, you don't know what it tastes like unless you at least try it. And then when they come out with another one, you try it again, and you can see similarities. It could be pretty darn close, or you could find some changes in it, and that's what I find is exciting. It's because they're putting their hard work and labor into it, and then you get to enjoy it and make that assessment.
Yeah, like region counts for both of these things that we enjoy, these hobbies that we enjoy. It's very interesting. I think that's what makes both of these hobbies that we've all grown to know and love so interesting. And that's one of the things that makes you really enjoy it, and one of the things that allows you to appreciate what actually goes into it. And I think actually that's a brand. I mean, we have a brand right here, I think, that got into one of those realms of, well, it's kind of like a well whiskey. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really, I don't think a lot of people treat it as they should, but I'm not one to say that you should smoke a cigar a certain way or you should drink your whiskey a certain way. But I think it's gotten that rap like as a regular, just either a shooter or like, hey, let's.
I think the well whiskey thing always cracks me up because on the cigar, I've smoked some $4 or $5 cigars that in the whiskey term would be considered a well whiskey, and they're dynamite cigars. It's just finding what tastes good to you. What blend. Like Steve was saying, that blend that they tweak it with. You can find some really good stuff, but then. The reason why something costs a little bit more is because there's more work maybe put into it. They age the tobacco longer. You say, why is a 50-year-old Scotch, $40,000? Well, there's like 8% of the whiskey left in the barrel, and for 40-some years, somebody had to babysit that. Just like I went to a Drew Estate barn burner, and they aged this, tobacco. You got to age this somewhere. It's taking up space.
And it costs doing business.
Somebody's got to watch it, and you're making zero money on this. And again, when we were talking about joking about the Cleveland whiskey, there's certain things that, in my opinion, you just can't replicate. In that aging process, that attention to detail, and that long-term investment, it comes at a cost, but that risk worth reward and that taste notes you get is what makes us go, wow. It makes us sit here and enjoy these.
One thing I like about the podcast, you guys really talk a lot of kind of inside baseball, kind of, how the podcast works. I think people who watch it, who listen, they really kind of get to know you guys. They really get to know how the podcast works, and they think that they're kind of part of it. At least that's kind of how I feel, kind of part of it, seeing it grow. Episode 40, that's pretty special. I mean, how long does it seem like you guys have been doing it? What's the biggest things you guys have learned? I mean, 40 weeks basically of doing this, right?
Yeah.
And that's no longer just mom and pop out of their garage doing it. You guys are really doing it. I've noticed, I listen to it on iTunes. So I've listened to every podcast. I think I said it to Steve when
Friday. That's great. We appreciate that support.
What's some of the things that you guys have learned kind of doing this for 40 times?
I'll go, and then
go ahead.
As normal, Steve cleans it up because normally that's one of the things that I think we found out. We've grown a lot as friends with all of this. And I think it's interesting. Even I go back through and listen to either arguments that we've had on here or arguments that just in general we've had on the podcast, or the times that whatever discussion we're talking about, or how each other thinks. And I think that's one thing that's special about this podcast is that we are pure. I think, we don't really refrain from either our feelings or how we talk.
It's a 3-hour therapy session, the way I kind of feel about it.
And that's what we wanted to really encompass in this. And as much as we've been kind of all over the place in the first half of this, that was a true testament to what we wanted to encompass, really. But with the podcast, obviously, you have to have a kind of a guideline and set schedule of things that you kind of want to talk about. At least you need to have a point or a purpose, and that was one thing that I think Steve's taught me about it, because at the beginning I was just let's do this. I'm more one of those things, if we stand around and think about it all the time, it's never going to get started. So, and then we started it, and then we're still thinking about things all the time. But my take on doing like 40 episodes thus far, I think it's definitely, that's why I always say like we've made it to 40. Because it's like I'm not saying like one of us are going to say, well, we're done like the next day, but you never know like what's going to happen. So I always look at us doing this every Wednesday as a blessing in disguise, really. And I think it's a blessing for a lot of people to see to learn who we are, like you said, Spencer.
I think some balls to be talking about who you are for 3 hours once a week. Take some guts, man.
Well, I appreciate like you whenever you're on here, whether you give like Steve feedback, because you guys talk a lot more than we do, than you and I do, and like you're one of those same guys that you're real and you're genuine, whether it be a negative point or a positive point. Like you're giving your opinion, and there's never any like wrongdoing behind it at all.
Sure.
It's just how it's your opinion, and I value your opinion personally, but I think for doing this many episodes for us, I think we've grown as people. I think we've learned a lot about doing things in this podcast realm. I think it's made us more creative as people, because I think as soon as people in their lifetime lose that aspect of creativity, because we're all born with creativity, and as soon as we get into the world and we start figuring out that not everything in our imagination is going to come to life sometimes, I think that really hits some people the wrong way, and this is one of our outlets that we can do that. And I think that's really something special, and to keep continuing to do that, and to have the fans that do listen, and to have, like Nick Thept that came to the cigar shop and met us. He was like the guy that won our first giveaway and stuff like that. Like, that's super cool to meet people that it's very humbling. And looking back, like, it doesn't seem like it's been 40 weeks, but it's also like, how do we keep pushing forward? How do we keep making this better to really get this community, these hobbies out into the world, because we know how much they mean to us, and we want to show other people how much that we think that it could mean to them.
What was your topic on the first episode? Do you remember?
About the podcast, really.
Yeah. It was about the podcast.
What we want to do with Whiskey Wednesday and everything. I'll expand on that. The biggest thing that I've learned so far in the last 40 episodes is that with the topic tonight, I think it's very fitting, because it is about having hobbies, finding a hobby, doing something, you know what I mean? It's actually making time for yourself to do something other than work, take care of yourself, family, and whatever else is your necessary obligations. And I think that's where the hobby comes in. That's where this has been an outlet for a lot of people. We've found, based on the viewership, the listeners, and everything else, is that people actually do enjoy taking time out of their day to have some sort of structured event, whether or not they are the ones doing it. And that's where I look at this as, one of the biggest obstacles we've had is actually forming like what we want as we see it now, almost as a product, where it was a hobby, now it's expanded. Now you have more people listening in every week, so they expect certain things. They don't know what to expect certain weeks. They don't know what the topic is. They don't know what the cigar is. They don't know if they're going to learn more about whiskey or the cigar, or about who's on as guests, which we have 2 great guests tonight, what they're going to learn about Jake and myself, or what they're going to find. They're either contributing if they're doing the live thing, or sending us feedback.
Do you look forward to doing this every Wednesday?
Hang on. One thing I will say, though, that I have noticed is that they, as a viewership and as a listener group, that base, when we reach out to them and say, hey, what do you guys want to talk about? What do you guys want us to drink? And all that stuff. So far, I've learned that there are more people that just want to tune in and listen to what we have to talk about and get something from it, and not necessarily contribute as much.
Yeah.
So that's where their view of which is fine. That's where it's one of our biggest obstacles some weeks is, what do you guys want to talk about? And so we'll sit there and pretty much stare at each other, and we'll kick around some ideas, and one of us will like it, one of us won't like it. The whiskey and the cigars, that's easy. It's just, we don't really have as much structure. It's getting guests on, that's a big thing. And it's just basically, like I said, I've learned that there are more people that want to view and take stuff from it, as opposed to if we put it out there, hey, email us topics, and then a week will go by and we've got no emails, or no messages, no nothing. It's just kind of like, that shows me that people want to be a part of it, but a lot of the reason that this has had some success so far is that this is something that a lot of people want to do, but they don't necessarily know how to do it or how to bring up subjects or how to bring up topics that they want to talk about. I've had some positive feedback. I'll call him out. Christian Summer has been a big part of this, and we're trying to get him on. He's been viewing and contributing to the conversation for some time. And it's funny, he stopped in the cigar shop because he works near us, actually. Stops in on his lunch break, and he just was all about thank you. He and I used to work together years ago, but he was just all about thanks, and he said, doesn't matter what the topic is, every week somehow it applies somehow to what I'm going through that week, that month, that day. And so that's where I can appreciate that I've learned that doing this as a hobby and now trying to formulate it, it's almost like there's more responsibility of hosting this, because to Jake's point earlier, we absolutely could have gone the whole thing of where it's just like, hey, turn the microphone on, turn the camera on. You know, we didn't have a camera in the beginning of it. You know, it's just turn the microphone on, let's just talk about whatever. Let's drink and talk. To have it have sustaining power, you have to have some structure, and that's what I've always pushed, is that you keep it loose, but you have some structure, that you're actually doing something. I think the same goes to the subject tonight of hobbies. You can't just necessarily say, you can, I want to do a hobby, I like cigars, and then you just smoke the same cigar over and over again. That's what you get out of it. There's other avenues you can go down. I want to check out different cigar shops, I want to smoke with different people, I want to drink different things with different cigars, I want to try different cigars. It's just how in depth you want to go with that hobby or with that project.
Yeah, I think hobbies are kind of interesting to talk about, because there's things that there's hobbies that you dive into where you buy products, and there's hobbies where you create something, and it's kind of interesting to see what we're doing, because all of that is like coinciding together, because we're creating a podcast tonight, we're smoking a product, we're drinking a product. So, and I'm sure that the people that have created these products think about it the same exact way, because they're creating something that they enjoy, right? Just as much as we enjoy this podcast that we're creating. So it's interesting. I think everyone should have at least, well, I think everyone, it does have something out there that they either have a passion that they've found that they have, or they've created or they've discovered a talent that becomes a hobby. You know, like me, I discovered that as far as my knowledge, I was good at video editing and stuff like that, and I knew how to shoot certain things, and that was a big hobby of mine for 2 years or so, and it still is, because I as we're sitting here, I think about, if I was not on the podcast, what I would be taking shots of.
Pictures.
Yeah, or video, or what, like I look at different angles and different bottles, and how I'm thinking of how I would edit it. So like that's still a part of me, even though I do it. So that is one thing I did want to say, is like hobbies can be a thing without actually constantly doing them.
Oh, sure.
And I think some people believe that a hobby is something that they don't constantly do, but they do constantly, occasionally, in a sense. Where
I think it's what you want to get out of it.
Yeah.
I think hobbies are really broad term, very broad term, as far as kind of what you do. And I was trying to think about, you know, when I got the subject kind of hobbies, and you know, when I was younger, I was collecting, you know, baseball cards, or collecting, you know, sports cards. That was the hobby as a kid. I think as we've gotten older, you know, some people got a little bit of money, things like that, and collecting bourbon, not necessarily for myself, but you know, my friends and things like that. Finding the bourbons, tasting the bourbons, that's the adult hobby, you know, going down to Kentucky, doing these auctions and things like that. That's become a real, you know, adult hobby. What can I do that's, you know, now in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s? What are things like craft beer,
breweries? I mean, my gosh,
that's exactly right. But I think you guys have hit on something, you know, with the bourbon. I don't know what's happened in the past couple of years, but it's gone nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, anywhere you go now, everyone's an expert, and it's been interesting to kind of watch the bourbon kind of take off as much as it has, and a lot of people do that as their hobby. I know you kind of go down to places and you'll do barrel testing and things like that, and that's your hobby, whether or not you want to say it or not. And becoming an expert on a subject, that's a hobby. Cigars could easily be a hobby for other people. Maybe I know it's a job, but I'm assuming you love your job, and if you weren't interested in the product or weren't interested in this, that's a hobby as well.
That's one of the things I like about the hobby thing, is that because it can be a distraction necessarily, like Jake was saying, you don't have to necessarily do it all the time. You don't have to, like, if you don't have time to do it, it's still something that a hobby typically will be something that you try out, and hopefully if it's something that is productive to you or people that are around you, but first and foremost, I think to you, because as long as you're exploring something outside of maybe your comfort zone at first and you're learning something, a lot of times with hobbies, if you're doing your everyday, you almost can stop learning. So a hobby starts out as something that you want to learn about and you want to kind of spend some of your waking hours doing. And that's where if it sticks and you really enjoy it, then it becomes maybe a passion and then part of your lifestyle. And I think that's really important for a lot of people to really get into. That's the cigar side of it. And then on top of that, you meet new people a lot of times. There are hobbies that are very, very much in the realm of solitude, which is also important for some people. But with what we have here, what actually branched out to Whiskey Wednesday, which branched out to the podcast thing and what we're doing here, getting you guys in the garage, getting people out there listening live or on the podcast. When you do these things, it actually can create not only an escape. So you asked earlier, do we look forward to doing this every week? For the most part, I'd say out of the 40 episodes, the vast majority, absolutely. But just like anything else, if you're not feeling it that day, you had a rough day, you're tired, whatever it is, that's part of this, is that you still have to show up and do it. But most of the time, and so far I'll say for me, every time, whether or not we have disagreements on the podcast, after the podcast, it's all been productive because we believed in each other and believed in you guys as guests and viewers, is that the goal is to keep moving forward with that and continue to expand and get better and everything else. I think that goes with a lot of hobbies. There's a lot of hobbies, especially when you're new, when you're doing something, you get frustrated. Golf is probably one of the best examples of that, and people joke about that all the time. As soon as you think you're getting good at something like golf, you go out and you have a terrible day, and you hear a lot of golfers come back, like to the cigar shop or elsewhere, and be like, "No, I'm done for the season. I'm not going back out."
They're pissed. So pissed.
The better you get, the harder it gets for you.
Yeah, but I think there's that passion.
Point.
That's where the hobby turns into passion, and it used to be a casual thing, but now it's kind of like with the bourbons. You can jump all over the place. It's like you miss out on a bottle, and you're just really, really frustrated because you can't find it anymore. Same thing with cigars. You burn through. Like I've got a humidor full of Cubans from when I was down on the Cuba trip, and I'm trying to kind of go through it somewhat slowly. I'd love to every time someone comes over, just give a round out. But then it's the next thing you know, 2 months go by and I'm out of those cigars, and that's something I don't necessarily want to be out of because I can't get it anymore until I go back down there and get those farm rolls, get those custom rolls and everything else.
Yeah, you can do that. Well, I mean, average person can do that.
Well, I think kind of to chime in on your guys' thing with like the hobby and like where the podcast goes. I mean, I can remember when it was in its infancies and sitting down with you guys, and one of my things that I told you guys was like, I was like, I'll listen to it till the last day as long as you guys keep it real. You know? And I always joke with you guys, and I always refer to Steve as the engineer and Jake as the architect. Both have the same passion for the hobby. Maybe one's at a different level. Like Jake's a little bit more passionate or a little bit more in depth into the bourbon. You're more in depth into the cigars. But I think the one thing that you guys have all said that but we got to hit on, it's the education part of it. The hobby is something you enjoy, but then when you educate yourself, and like the golfer, once you set a tier of how good you are, you get frustrated when you can't reach that tier and you want to get better, swing or better score or whatnot. So you push yourself to educate yourself. And then that's what's blissful about, the hobbies is then I come to you and say, hey, what about this? And then you share your knowledge on that. And maybe there's something that I can learn, tweak that I didn't see, because it's tough to critique yourself to a certain degree. I pitched in college, and some of the best advice I got was other competitors. You know, the guy across, you talk after the game, whether you won or lose, and you say, oh man, you know, I could tell every time you were going to throw a curveball, you know, or something like that, you know, you gave it away, you know, and technically the opponent or the enemy, as we kind of jokingly say, you know, is giving you advice to actually defeat him. But then when that guy does good against you and you're a stronger person, you're more educated, that makes it that much better, you know, because you want to beat the best. You want to be with the best, you know. So that's one of the things, the education part of it, I think, plays a really big role in the hobby. Whether it starts out just for fun, you still got to educate yourself, you know, in what you're doing, and then you build on that, you know, and then you become, you know, I like cars. I can't go out and buy a 57 Chevy when I was 18 years old. I had to get a job, and you gotta find the means to do it. And then when you get to a point in your life, maybe when you're 50 or 60, 70, and you've got that money that you can get into that hobby, you know, or you start with a Ford Pinto, you know, and you work there, you know, it's, you know, money factors in it, life factors into it. If you have kids or you start a new job, you know.
I will say, I don't think hobbies change. I think they go up and down, but I think people discover their passions early, and even though that you may have something that you're passionate about early in life, and you kind of stray away from it, I think you will always come back to it at some point. Like I look at my dad, where our family was big into guns, and it was more about it wasn't hunting, it was like sports shooting and clay shooting and stuff like that, and they would go to matches and do things like that. And I remember as a kid, and we still have the plaques at the house, I'd go downstairs and like there would be like plaques from, you know, when my dad shot and awards and stuff like that. Now my uncle took it to another level and kept going, right? And he's got safes on safes full of guns, and he's stuck with it. He's a range officer, and he's a registered like CCW officer and stuff like that. But it's, you know, last weekend or 2 weekends ago, I had the time to go, and I was seeing what my dad was doing. My mom was on a cruise, so I was like, what's going on? Like, I should hang out with my dad since I have the time, right? Since I don't live at home anymore. He said, well, Dan, there's this AR match or whatever down in Zanesville, you know, do you want to go? And come to find out that, you know, like my other uncle was there. I got a lot of uncles on my dad's side. There's a lot of brothers, but so there was 4 of us, and it was a great morning. I mean, from 8 to 9, and then to 12 or 1. I mean, that was really cool. And it's like to look at my dad that used to have this hobby well before I was, you know, in this world, and then still, you know, having this hobby, and come to find out that I like did a better job than him in the match was kind of it was a cool experience. It was just a cool experience, because you know, there's things in life where I'm sorry. My point is that when we all have these things that we may have done in our past and we really, really loved, and I think people lose track of that because they think, well, I don't do that anymore. Man, I should take some time to do that again. You should make time to do that again, because you loved it at one point in time. You'll love it again, and you still do. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'll just say it's just important not to lose that, because we all have our jobs, and I think you've won if you've created a passion and created a hobby, and that's your job, and you never lose that love for it. But there's some people that they have a passion and they create a hobby, and that does become their job, and because it is a job, they don't like it. But regardless, I don't think you should ever lose it.
But you can always find a new hobby though too.
You're
talking about the past too, because speaking of cigars, you know, because
it's important to find new hobbies too.
Well, but my thing is like I deploy, right? I go deploy around, you know, the world, you know, for the government, and I bring cigars. Before the FDA fucked it up, a lot of cigar companies would donate cigars and send them right over, just to the troops. And there would be guys that, didn't smoke, guys and girls didn't smoke, and you'd have cigars, and I was usually the lucky recipient that got the box in my name.
Mm-hmm.
So, they weren't my cigars. I was just the fortunate one that got them, and then I would distribute them out. And, I've seen a lot of new people get into a new hobby because they were like, I don't know much about cigars, and then you'd say, well, hey, try this, and you try to educate them on it, It's 10 times better than a cigarette. You don't inhale it. It's a natural product. There's nothing added to this. There's like no chemicals added to this. It's an all natural product, and they would try it, and some would enjoy it, some would smoke every once in a while, some would continue on their life, and they tried it and they educated themselves, about the product and if they liked it, and they started a new hobby. And then I've got some guys that I deployed with 10 years ago, and we still meet up all the time and smoke a cigar when I'm in that area or when I see them. Or I was fortunate enough this last deployment, I met up with a buddy in South Carolina, and we smoked a cigar, and we hadn't seen each other for 3 years, physically seen each other, but we talk on Facebook and on the phone, So it's amazing how, as you get older, though, you can get new hobbies, and still remember the ones, it's like when you said, like, back in the day, I always find it ironic. It's like riding a bicycle. Shit, I haven't rode a bicycle in years and years and years. I got a motorcycle. It's motorized. I don't have to pedal. But it is exciting every once in a while to get on a bicycle and remember when you used to put, the Ken Griffey Jr. card or the Troy Aikman card and the spikes, and it was doing Papa wheelies, and stuff like that, and it's like, man, I remember that, not going to go out and buy a bike, but there is people that remember that, and they're like, hey, I'm going to get into this cross-country.
There's memories involved, and there's
cycling.
Enjoyment there.
Yeah, and then when you can correlate that with something kind of like we were talking earlier, you say, oh, you didn't know me, but then, we can, we're doing a hobby, and then from this, we might find out that there's something new or something that we share, and that's what's beautiful about the hobby thing that we talk is you get other people involved, and then you're like, whether you never do that hobby again, you get a friendship, and that's what's beautiful, and that's what I like about the podcast is it's real people in the community. We're lucky that you guys are in Columbus and I can drive right down the road.
Sure.
I'm sure there's guys out in California or Florida, or the guy that won the cigars, I forget where he's from, that you sent him a box of cigars. He's from out of state or something.
Yeah.
I guarantee that he would love to be here. Just unfortunate that the hobby that he enjoys and where you're at is far away. And hopefully he gets to come, but. That's some of the things, finances and distance get in the way a little bit, but.
Well, life gets in the way.
Yeah.
A lot of times, I think that's why a lot of people lose, they lose that focus on doing something they enjoy all the time, as far as a hobby. Because, Amy's saying it on the feed here, and I wanted to make that point a little bit where it's kind of all encompassing. It's not only educating yourself, but the way you educate yourself, even on a hobby that is more, I guess, solitude, like photography. A lot of times when you're doing photography or whatever, you're on the side of the camera that you are capturing. It's not a whole lot of conversation there unless you're shooting a subject that really wants certain shots. But if you're just out in the wilderness and you're taking nature shots and stuff like that, there's not a whole lot going on there. But the way you get better at it is from learning from people or going on. We have the technology now where, just like this, if you want to learn more about cigars, you can tune into this podcast. If you want to learn more about something else, there's blogs, there's websites. All you have to do is a Google search now, and you can learn different things. You don't know. I think bourbon's a big one where we always joke about it a bit on this, where OKI was something that Jake stumbled upon. I don't know if it was because of Phil or someone else, but he stumbles on OKI, and in a lot of the bourbon groups locally here, that everyone's just like, I'm good. I've never heard of it, or I don't know much about it.
Okay, it's delicious.
It is. Now, fast forward, hang on.
I love it.
Hang on, fast forward, months later, then you can't find it, now everyone's on it, and now it's popular, and it's the in thing to do because it's spread through there, and it is delicious, but it's one of those things that even when you're passionate about a hobby, you still have to educate and have an open mind to try new things, new techniques, and how to grow that. Even if it is just a passive kind of thing, I do it a couple times a year, you know what I mean? But I still enjoy it, and people enjoy it for different reasons. It's purely, I want to try this. I sit in my apartment or my house or whatever it is, and I try different whiskeys. I go to the liquor store, I get a new bottle that week I haven't had, go back home, have, nightcap, and that's the bottle I have for a couple of months. But there's other people that then go the other side, bourbon hunting, where you're actually, it's become more of a, well, to some people.
Yeah.
To me, and I've said it, I'm like, I'm not going to just go stand in line for something because of that passion, because it's a barrel pick or whatever it is, a store pick. But I do appreciate the passion from other people, and I love trying that. Phil gifted a Buffalo Trace store pick that he let me sample the other week, and I absolutely loved it. Based on that, he's like, good, because I got you a bottle. And so that's part of his passion with this hobby, is that he can actually spread the love and bring more opportunity for other people to try new things and to further explore the interest in that hobby. I think cigars are the same way. It's the community side of it, and that's where Amy and a couple other people I think commented on there that's something that if you open yourself up to try new things, you never know what your next hobby or passion is going to be. And I think that's also going back to what you guys are saying as far as educate yourself. But the hobbies from when you were a kid that you haven't done in a long time, I think it's important to kind of try it again if you have the opportunity, because you never know if all of a sudden, because now you are older, you have more means as far as what's behind you in your bank account or the position you're in life, that you absolutely are able to do that. And I also think life does help out. Phil's got a baby at home. As that child gets older, you find that, just like Jake had it, from the shooting side of it, he grew up with that, and then now, coming back later, he was just free someday, and all of a sudden it's like, I went out with my dad, I went out with my uncle, did some shooting, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a shorter time frame between the last time where Jake goes out shooting again with his dad, and it brings people together, families or friends or whatever. New friends a lot of times too.
Yeah, one thing that me and you do, Steve, is we play sports.
Mm-hmm.
So I play soccer. I played college in a couple years. After college, and Steve plays softball. And that camaraderie of being on a team, of still doing it. We're not as good as we used to be.
Speak for yourself.
Doesn't Steve play left bench or left out? I can't remember.
Left field.
Oh, left field.
Shit!
That's a position.
I just got on the mound and threw the ball.
I know, buddy.
But it's doing something that we did when we were younger, and still doing it. I do it every week, and I don't know if your season's still going on, Steve, but we try to do it, but just it's tougher with a sport like football. But with soccer and with softball, to still do that, to still do something that we love, to still be around the guys. That's when I moved to Columbus, that was the biggest thing. Is a lot of people found a lot of friends at the cigar shop and things like that, but me, being able to join a team, that was a real easy way for me to, maintain. I don't even want, maybe it's a hobby, maybe not, but to join a team to play a sport, was a big deal in me staying active, and then also, staying social with people.
Yeah.
Being around, 10 to 20 guys every week, that's a big deal to kind of have that thing that you do versus just going home every night and watching Netflix or anything like that.
That's a great point though that you bring up, Spencer, because I think when life gets in the way, it's not necessarily all about you, but it's about your immediate family and what is in your viewfinder. Is it your wife, your significant other, your children?
Something you find, I think your initial hobbies is by your close people, primarily your mom and dad, brothers and sisters, if they were older. So when you're growing up, and then you kind of branch off. My family played sports, so naturally, where did I gravitate to was sports, and then I do other things. My mom and dad were never into sports, shooting, and guns. And not a lot of people in my family are in the military. And I went off, love sports, but then I got into shooting guns, and a lot of my family members don't drink alcohol or smoke, but I, got those hobbies and branched out. So I think that's how I kind of because you were talking when you were way little, your dad, So it was almost kind of like you were going to get pushed into that hobby, and then as you get older and you make that decision, like, oh yeah, I want to continue with this, but you learn the techniques and you got educated on it, and then you go from there.
Yeah, I mean, we always had, like, just a personal note, like, we always had, like, BB guns and stuff. I remember having, like, a Red Ryder, at the house when I was little and stuff like that, so.
Christmas morning?
Yeah.
Nice.
Good movie.
Separately.
Go to the bathroom.
Sure. Taking a quick break. Facebook. For those of you watching right now.
You can have whatever you want. Your hand broke? There you go.
Steve, I thoroughly enjoy the cigar.
I know you do, man. That's one of the reasons I picked it.
So, can you tell me a little bit about it, or do you want to do it on there?
You're on there.
Great. I'll wait. When are you going to get a cool hat like Jake?
Never.
Why don't you got that fucking...
I like his Archie Bunker
Yeah, you got
hat.
the circular head, dude. You can wear hats. You can wear like...
Anyone can wear a hat, really.
No,
Oh.
everyone can wear a hat. Like, you gotta commit to it.
And you put it on your head.
Like, if I wore that beanie, the beanie would start here. And I just kind of like gently and then I would always kind of just go like this. So I can't always wear that.
I think you'd be alright.
Nah.
You don't think so?
I mean, I don't want to steal your hat to you, but...
No, I'm not giving you this hat.
Are you cold?
Yeah, I'm bald.
No. It actually feels really nice in here.
Yeah, got the heater on.
You know what you should... Who got that, was it the smoke? That you guys were, yeah, the smoke that you were selling at the Tinder Box.
Sam Smoker got that. It'd be too loud in here while we're doing the podcast. I've got this thing that I need to clean up. That was an older one from the shop.
Is that a smoke?
It's an air purifier.
Air purifier?
Yeah. We'd like to get a rabbit air in here, but that's going to take a little while.
Drilling holes in the ceiling?
Yeah, maybe in the next house.
You got a
Maybe in the
window.
next house.
Oh, you do.
Yeah, we got the window open.
Yo, how many hats you got?
A lot.
You got a lot of
I
hats?
have a ton of hats.
Good hat guy now? I like that hat, dude.
I don't have a lot of these. I got, this was one of my souvenirs from Spain.
You gotta get one with like a feather.
Yeah, I want
You can
one.
pull it off, man.
Yeah, I like this hat.
I gotta wear more hats.
You pull this off. Oh, yeah!
It's nice.
Don't be jealous.
Yes!
Shit's warm, bro.
You look like a tall, thicker Michael Jackson.
Thank you. I saw his show in Vegas, by the way, if you get a chance.
My
Fucking
wife-
amazing.
my wife-
Amazing.
My wife went to that. Like, they were going to go to the one that he was actually going to be at, and
Oh my gosh.
then he passed away,
Yeah.
and they went to the other production,
The
and she
circus
said, yeah, she
So
said
it's
it was
like
amazing.
him to me, and he's literally, it's a hologram, and you can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, people were crying watching the show. It was, yeah, it was impressive.
Where are we at?
Talking about,
Yeah, nice, good movie. Yeah, house runs,
Did you hear that?
stuff like that. So Christmas morning. Yeah, nice, good movie. Yeah.
Red Ryder BB gun. Yeah, I mean, like it.
BB guns.
Yeah, BB guns. No, it's. I always like hearing what everyone has to say. Like we all want to give points, right? But at the end of the day, I think every topic that we talk about is all encompassing. No matter how hard we try, it's so broad.
That's what you want, though, for discussion.
Yeah, and it's perfect
That's what
because
we want, yeah.
yeah, so it's perfect because someone will say something and then someone else will say something and then. But I think it's most important for our viewers and our listeners to understand that it's important to have all of these attributes that we talk about, no matter the subject, to be a part of your life. Like some may look at it as, I'm always looking at the past. No, I just think it's an important part to understand the past because then you can move forward.
Back to education.
Yeah, and then if no problem.
Yeah, let me save it again.
Oh, okay. And if people are, always focused on the future, then they can never, I think, truly experience the quality of the past.
Or present.
You know what I mean? So I just want to say, like, I always love our discussions, especially with Spencer on, having Phil on you for the first time. You know,
Well, give me some credit. I have been here like 3 times.
That's
before
true.
it, you
That's
know.
true.
It's not on camera like that.
Well, the
one
bourbon
time
one,
on,
yeah,
one time on camera.
And then when we talked about the ass wipes and toilet.
Oh yeah, that's good.
yeah,
conversation.
I think that was one of the best podcasts ever.
We showed Steve how to, how the military,
I'm glad that was
Wipe-
off camera.
wipe
with one sheet.
Yeah. And speaking about hobbies,
Dang.
no, on a real note though, because obviously one of my hobbies is the whiskey, and I know the first part is the cigars, but Spence has tried a couple of you guys have tried these. I kind of want to touch back just on like the hobby and kind of telling the viewers and stuff about the whiskey. So we kind of went over the Jack Daniel's Gold 27. So it's basically the same mash bill, these 3, the Gentleman's Jack and the single barrel. It's 80% corn.
Yeah.
It is 8% rye, and it is 12% barley. Okay, so these 3 are all the same. This one is aged, this one again, like we talked about, I won't go over it too much, but
The gold.
the gold is aged, in a regular traditional oak barrel, and then it's filtered, and then to the mellowing, and then it's put into a maple barrel. And then a lot of you guys went to the Gentleman's Jack. The Gentleman's Jack is just good old number 7, ran through the mellowing process, trickled through, put in the barrel, and then it's pulled out of the barrel and ran through the mellowing process one more time, and then right into the barrel. So it's mellowed twice. So that's why you get the smoothness. The Jack Daniel's single barrel is, again, the
That I've
same.
not had yet.
That's a little harsher, I thought. compared to
90,
the other ones.
94 proof, but that is what that is that's just your good old number 7 that you were drinking the other day, Spence. But it's one single barrel, so it goes mellowed once, goes into the
When you say
barrel.
mellowed, what does that mean?
That's when it's they've got these vats that I think are about 15 feet around, and it's got maple that they burn and they make an ash, just like when your campfire goes to nothing, and they put it in these vats that are about 30 feet deep, and they trickle the whiskey, and it just seeps down through and goes to the bottom. That's why it's not a bourbon. So then this one right here is the same as number 7, but it's just one barrel. It's one single barrel. It's not a big vat that gets trickled through. It just trickles through one barrel, and it's 94 proof, so it's hotter. Your number 7 is usually 80 proof.
I'm guessing also, sorry to interrupt, but I'm guessing also that they do a select barrel
Correct.
for the single barrels.
Correct.
I'm guessing they pick barrels and say this is going to be a single barrel.
Correct.
Instead of put into a blend.
Correct. And then I did a little bit of research while you guys were talking, because this Jack Daniel's rye, you enjoyed it. I seen you pointing at it.
I'm sipping on it right now. It's very good.
It's 70% rye. So the other ones are 80% corn, and it's 18% corn, 12% malted barley. So it is a true rye.
It's not like a super high rye though.
I mean, 70% is pretty.
I mean, it's high, but
But
it's
it's
not.
different than anything else on the table. I'll tell you that for obvious reasons.
Yeah, it's definitely different. But then not being a Jack Daniel's aficionado per se. You are taking a rye and you're mellowing it, so that might take some of the characteristics, because you guys know more of a weeded guy, sweeter guy. You guys are more of that spicy rye guy, so that's why I enjoy getting different Buffalo Trace products for you to try.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Especially when I enjoy it, you get to see what I enjoy in a product, but it's still in the same lineage of what you drink. So I would assume that the mellowing process of that kind of does take that peppery, spicy out a little bit.
Yeah, Nate just chimed in that Woodford rye that he brought up. He says like 53%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think and we talked about it numerous times, but I think Woodford knocked it out of the park with their rye. Chris Morris killed that rye on figuring out that it's just barely a rye.
So to be considered a rye, it just has to be.
Because it has to be 51% at least.
Yeah. What are most bourbons in general?
51% corn. That's one of their criteria. And then they either have a rye and a barley.
So would a rye not have corn in it?
So they're different grains.
Okay.
So like much like the same where we talked about the cigar blend, where you have a wrapper leaf, a filler, and
Even more so
you know,
because it's
binder.
not the same. I mean, it's not the same. It's not just a different form of tobacco, but good point.
Yeah, they're different. They're different grains, and so most bourbons, most whiskeys have at least American whiskeys have corn, rye, and barley, unless you want to do a really sweet mash bill like Maker's Mark. That's what put them on the map because they did a red wheat instead of a rye. So they took the spice completely out of it.
So too, just to add on that, because I can tell you, I can see the gears chiming inside. So to dumb it down a little bit, so in the whiskey world, there is a wheated whiskey, a wheated whiskey, a rye whiskey, but then you also get people that use the term bourbon, a rye bourbon or a wheated bourbon. So the rye bourbon still, it's got to be 51% corn, but the primary gist that makes up the other 49% of it would be they would put rye in it. Well, like Maker's Mark, they don't put the rye in it, they put the wheated part in it. So that's a wheated bourbon. Now, if you don't want to use like this one, if this
The rye.
they use 70% rye. So even if this was made by a distillery that didn't, filter it, they couldn't call this a bourbon because the primary source is 70% rye. It's not at least 51%
Primary ingredient, yeah.
Yeah, primary ingredient. So that's kind of, because I say I'm a wheated guy, I'm a wheated bourbon guy typically, but I do enjoy a wheated whiskey. We love the Journeyman's.
Oh my gosh, I wish I had like 4 more bottles of that stuff.
We'll get some more.
Because it's a wheated bourbon. It's not a. I always thought it was 100% wheat.
It's a wheated whiskey, actually.
It's a wheated.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
does that mean it's mostly?
It's mostly.
And we're talking about a hobby here, folks. So
Yeah.
So it's a wheated.
You guys got a broad term for hobby. I'll tell you that right now. We're at the bar hobbying.
More of a passion.
Yeah, more of a passion.
So it's a wheated bourbon.
It's a wheated whiskey.
It's a wheated whiskey.
Yeah, they use more wheated in it. So
Got
they use less than 51% corn.
Okay.
I would have to look with the mash bill.
Got it.
So Crane, you're a gym rat, right?
No.
No, you just go to the gym most days, and
Yeah.
You consider going to the gym a hobby?
I do. You were asking about that before we go on to that because I think Phil had a good point bringing up what we were drinking.
Yeah, I apologize. I know.
No,
the
you're
only
good.
reason why I brought that up is
I think it's
because
great.
we're still in the hobby part of it. So
I think it's great.
and we're sampled 2 or 3 more extra ones.
Yeah,
So.
and we also lit up the Monte Cristo Classic,
Yep.
which is from Altadis USA, which we appreciate. So the big thing with this one is that they use a true Connecticut shade leaf for the wrapper and then Dominican filler binder. The story, real briefly.
Is one wrapper stronger than the other wrappers?
Yeah, so the Connecticut shade grown, one of the reasons it gives a lighter shade, we've covered this on the podcast I think at some point, but it's a good review, is that one of the reasons that it is a lighter shade is because it literally has cheesecloth over the crop during the growing process that will shade it from the sun.
Yeah.
So it's still sun grown, if you will, but I mean they use sun grown because it's all natural. Shade grown is going to be the fact that there's something protecting it from.
Cheesecloth.
Yeah. So it's like white cloth over the field.
It's all over the field.
Over the field that's growing it. Yep,
I
absolutely.
had no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, look that up online if you guys are at home on the Facebook Live, or if you're listening to the podcast. You can actually look up shade grown tobacco, and it'll show you images of literally posts in the field, and then they have this drape over top of it, basically covering all of that.
We should bring some cheese.
Diana asked, like, kind of like bread. She's asking about the rye, for instance. I don't like rye bread. Is that like that?
So the funny thing about that is, to go back, Maker's Mark, actually the wife was the one that developed the recipe, and she made bread. So, because you use the same ingredients, and she made a bunch of loaves of bread, and they cut it up, and they ate the bread, and they were like, oh, we like this, and then that's how they made the mash bill to make Maker's Mark.
She was the inspiration for the entire
Yeah,
thing, pretty much.
She made the labels.
She made the label, the name, the red wax.
So to answer your question, there's a lot of similarities, so potentially, and I say there's similarities too. I like weeded whiskey, weeded bourbons. I also like Hefeweizen beers, it's more of a wheat beer, and then I like a lot of medium bodied cigars that are Connecticut's, so I get kind of like that, a little bit of sweeter and not yuck, or you guys love the rye whiskeys, and the full bodied Nicaraguans and stuff. So
I go back and forth. That's why I like this one. That's what I was getting to, is that a guy named Jose Sejas actually blended this in the attempt to not necessarily mimic the Cuban tobacco or the Cuban blends, but it was actually something to kind of pay tribute to the Cuban tobacco. And he was the master blender for Altadis, which is a lot of the major companies. That's what they call this, the Monte Cristo Classic. That's why it has that classic brown band on it, because they used the Dominican filler and binder to complement that, and that's why he blended it that way, was to make it more of a classic cigar.
So I got 2 questions for you on the Connecticut,
Yeah.
because I like them. So I'm assuming that cheesecloth goes over there, because I know like certain vegetables, fruits, and trees, the more sun they get, the more they grow. And then like I've heard in the past, like like when you get a lot of sun on tobacco, this is where you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but like you get a lot more nicotine in them because of the sun, and they grow.
So it makes it lighter that way, milder, yeah.
So is that one of the things that makes a Connecticut lighter, like the Connecticut
shade? If you talk about shade grown, yeah, absolutely. And then we had, like what we smoked before was the Connecticut broadleaf. No shade over it. There's no cheesecloth over that. So that's where this is. I mean, from my understanding though, is that it tries harder, so it grows further up. You know what I mean? It's bigger because it's trying to get to the sun. Yeah, just from nature's standpoint. But yeah, that's exactly why they do it. Is that even like typically Ligero, like the top primings, they're not going to get as much nutrients from the sun, and therefore they're not going to be as strong with nicotine, and that's where you get that milder leaf.
Are there Ligero Connecticut leaves?
Technically, I would say, and someone from the cigar industry, if they're on, I would think they could classify it, because Ligero is typically the 5th and 6th priming, which is the top of the plant. So technically, yes, but it's not necessarily the same thing.
They don't use them.
No, I think they use them. I mean, that's still the choice leaves you're going to use.
I kind of look at it almost as like just a regular plant, like a vegetable. Like if it's going to get sun, it's going to be a darker green, and that it's probably going to be more bitter, a lot more.
Well, if you're not stalk cutting a tobacco plant, you're actually you're taking off the lower primings, and then you leave the middle and the top ones, and you harvest the next levels up, and then you leave that. So it's almost like a suntan, right? So the longer those Ligero, not only are they higher up on there, but you will leave those. You'll actually cut up the plant as you harvest it.
I just mean like in the Connecticut broadleaf, and then like the Connecticut wrapper leaf. Like it's kind of like the Connecticut broadleaf has a lot. It's richer. Some may say that it's bitter, but it's definitely a more rich flavor. And this is lighter.
Well, again, I think a big part of that's not only the seed, but it's also the way they grow. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, is that the Connecticut broadleaf is just a field of tobacco. So they'll go, like we visited, I saw Paul Allers on, Brian, Joyce, and I actually visited the Connecticut Altadis farms, and at the time, for the 2nd season in a row, they were growing the broadleaf. So there were no shade, there are no posts to do the shade over it. It grows sun-grown 100% of the time. They go through, it's a different plant, it looks completely different. When I was in Cuba, I showed them a picture of it, and they didn't even know what broadleaf was. Mm-hmm. It's not something that they grow down there.
So that's my last question, because I know you wanted to ask something, but since we're specifically on this Connecticut, what does Connecticut mean? Because like I know we got the state of Connecticut, and they grow tobacco.
That's where it's from. So you have Connecticut seed, right? So you have this as a true Connecticut wrapper on it, and that's something that is typically more expensive because it is grown in the United States. What you'll find a lot of times, and even the Monte Cristo White series has an Ecuadorian Connecticut shade wrapper. And the Ecuadorian side of it is because it's cheaper to grow it in mass quantities, but they take Connecticut seed and they do the same growing techniques, but in Ecuador.
Gotcha.
So it's going to be a little bit different. There's a little bit, in my opinion, a higher esteem to actually growing and harvesting in the Connecticut Valley there, where this wrapper leaf came from. I know Dustin is in the garage, and he's He was smoking the vintage Connecticut white, which the difference is that that's the white, my understanding, it's the white blend, but instead of that Ecuadorian Connecticut, they use a vintage, like an actual Connecticut shade grown.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's Connecticut
Does
seed.
Monte Cristo have factories in Cuba?
So separate. This is not the same company as the Cuban Monte Cristo.
Not the same company.
Ain't that funny?
No, but
Is that true?
Yes. I asked that
Paul
to Steve
actually
too.
just chimed in. Ecuador is naturally cloudy. It creates the optimum shade climate also.
Should grow some
Where?
stuff in Ohio.
The soil's not right. And the seasons aren't right. That's one of the things with Connecticut Valley actually has some great soil in the way that I'm assuming it was carved out by the glaciers at some point. It all kind of sank in the right way, and that's why they started growing it there, and it really took to the soil.
That's why a lot of, like, even Kentucky has like good soil, but it's not good enough like for cigar tobacco. It's mostly cigarette tobacco. So if you go to Kentucky, it's
Well, they've cultivated it for that too.
yeah,
Yeah.
they've always done that.
This is where hobbies go, though. I mean, this
Yeah,
is. I mean, you have discussions. You have guys around. We all met through the cigar shop.
It's all encompassing.
Yeah, we met through the cigar shop more or less, and the passion, and the hobby, and everything else. And that's why I think it's very important to do all that, because all the people viewing and listening is the same thing. I mean, they either know us, or they know someone that knows us, or someone that viewed it, someone came across it. We talked about the gentleman in the UK that actually just got into cigars recently, and he sent us a message on the Bourbon and BS podcast Instagram account, said, stumbled across your actual podcast. I'm welding 10 hours a day. Love listening to you guys because it's like I'm hanging out with friends.
So let me ask you a question. In the cigar industry, what's your thoughts on the vaping industry? Is it taking away from the cigar industry?
Not
It's a whole different thing.
So I think the vape, I mean,
cigarette based.
Cigarette. You think it's taken away from the cigarettes?
the whole point of the vape initially was to stop smoking, and majority of people are trying to stop smoking cigarettes.
You think that's what it started as?
Well,
That's how it started.
But that's
That's how
not
it started.
So you had the patch, you had the gum, you had everything else, and they're like, well, let's give them the oral fixation, and we'll have the smoke coming in and out, smoke, in quotes, but it's like the vape, so it's not, there's no actual tobacco in it. They use a synthetic nicotine in there to give you kind of that caffeine feel, because it's all the same family there.
With
and
no
that's,
harm to your lungs.
with no harm.
Well, they really
supposedly. And that's where the FDA got involved, because they don't know what they're putting in those liquids. Because again, just like anything else, like if the whiskey or the soda industry was not regulated by anything, then you could say, yeah, it's corn, rye, and barley, and there's actually something else in there.
So my dad was, he was never really a cigarette smoker, but he started smoking cigars. He was smoking, 4 or 5 a day. Not the best ones, but he was smoking cigars. And then he switched to vape.
Dive into it.
Okay.
Do you see people who smoke cigarettes switch to cigars?
Yes.
You do.
Yeah, and I haven't seen anyone going from cigars and saying, I need to try vapes.
And you all at the store do not sell
We sell jewel pods right
them.
now.
You do sell
Yeah,
pods.
yeah.
So do people come in there strictly for that?
Yeah, that's the other side of it, and that's the
Do they
main thing we
vape
talk
in the
about
store?
with, so it's not necessarily a hobby, but the vape companies, all that, the industry got really, really smart and said, you know what, we can make this something where we're already having some benefit to this business model that we have. Now, how do we get new people in to buy more of it? And so we do get people in, and we had tried the e-liquids before, and it's something that, I've never smoked anything before. I haven't smoked cigarettes, cigars, weed, nothing. But I really want to try vape.
So
So
but
it's
their
actually bringing in
advertising
new
is
people.
that don't start. Their advertising for Juul is if you haven't started smoking cigarettes, don't try this product.
No, the big thing is that they're in an industry which hasn't been,
It's not as regulated.
well, so the big
It hasn't
thing
even
is,
been classified yet.
it has, and it's unfortunately under the umbrella of the Tobacco Act of 2009, which from getting back into politics was the Obama administration pushing that through, which was aimed towards cigarettes because that was not as regulated, if you will, and you could market it any way you wanted to. And so that's why you had like filtered cigarettes even that were flavored, so you can get like chocolate cigarettes. There's several companies that were doing that. The big thing with the vapes is that it's like, you know what, I'm gonna put it out there, and it's literally called Fruity Pebbles, or it's literally
For the
called.
kids.
Well, it's not for the kids.
It's gotta be. They gotta market Fruity Pebbles to the kids, Steve.
There's a whole thing right now. I mean, the big, like, you go to the store now, you can still get that. And then same thing you're talking about with hobbies. It reminds you of your childhood. So it's like if you're getting into it, you're like, man, I really like that. You're looking at an aisle or like a shelf of different flavors. You're like, oh man, I used to love Fruity Pebbles. Let me buy that. I don't want the tobacco one anymore. I don't want to do that. Or you get a new buyer in and you're like, oh, I want to try that. What do I pick? They're marketing to people that don't necessarily like tobacco, but they want to do this vape thing. They're not going to pick the classic tobacco or the Virginia tobacco. They're going to pick something like Jewel has fruit medley. They have cool mint. They have cool cucumber. They have mango, they have creme brulee, they have all these flavors that, how many kids do you know that actually just like, you know what, I just really love the flavor of creme brulee. I had it so much as a kid. Very few. They're marketing to people that want to try flavors, in my opinion. And yes, if kids are doing the same thing with that's why you don't see that Joe Camel anymore, because that was appealing to everyone.
That's why cigars are not allowed to say mild or medium, like we just talked about that.
Yeah.
But you don't see as many fruit flavored cigars, right?
Oh, but you have them, but they're not allowed to. They're not allowed to
things like that.
But they're not allowed to technically market them as saying this tastes like chocolate, like this tastes like cherry. They either call it.
They're under scrutiny right now because it was expanded in 2016 to that. Yeah.
Like Java has latte and Maduro and
DeJarme,
red and mint.
yeah. DeJarme's a good example of that too, because those clove cigarettes changed to clove cigars because of that Tobacco Act, and then now they're under scrutiny with the expansion of that FDA regulation. So now we're starting to get into DeJarme cherries. They're called the DeJarme Ruby. Same thing that Marlboro Golds were Marlboro Lights. They can't call them lights anymore by marketing.
What's Marlboro Red called these days?
Marlboro Red.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's because a color is not anything it doesn't appeal to saying it's
but
not
if
as
you wanted
bad
to
for
get
you.
cancer right away, you get Marlboro Red. That was the heaviest tobacco you could probably
Smoke them while you're laying in tan bed, absolutely. You look good though.
Yeah. When's the last
You
time
look
been
great,
tanning?
Spencer. I'm glad to
I
have you.
haven't been tanning in years, man.
I can tell.
I'll go tomorrow.
This V-neck he's got.
A lot of chest hair there.
Got a little white.
We gotta do some there. We'll be alright.
Well, I'll say this, and I think Steve will agree with me, is that we've been all over the place tonight. And with that being said, I love it, actually. Especially with you two guys, Spencer, Phil. I always love I like the way that you guys think. I like the way that you guys interact with people.
Absolutely.
I like the way that you guys ask questions. You're people that, we need more people that show interest in other people. And that they're interested in learning about different things and why people like different things. I think we've lost that because we're so focused on our own goals and stuff like that, and that's not a bad thing, but that's what leads up to that, and that's why I love having you guys on, and it makes for a great discussion. But
well, I think you and Steve's conversation skills have gotten a lot better. Not that they were ever weak, but just in doing this, to be able to have a 3-hour long conversation without being on your phone the whole time. You all have developed a skill to talk to anybody for 3 hours. I mean, I know you do it at the shop, and you could probably talk about, what color the wall is, but it's, I've, in listening to you all, have learned, one, just how to conversate with anybody about any topic, but I think you two have grown immensely over the past 40 weeks, and if other people will tell you, while I got you in front of me, it's impressive to watch and see how you have grown, over the past few months. And I hope you all don't take it for granted, because what you're doing, just keep it up. And, I enjoy it. I appreciate being here. But, it's from where you all started to where you all are now, it's fun to watch.
Appreciate that. That's awesome.
yeah, thank you, Spencer.
Because again, that's what we get a lot out of it. Like you said, you look forward every Wednesday to doing it. And my main point is whether or not you do, the fact that we're doing it every week, it's by the end of it or days later, you reflect on it and you get something from it. And I think that's why the hobby topic was great, because that's something that you actually, that's what the benefit is there, is that you actually are getting something from it, whether it be from other people that you're doing it with, or just something that is a distraction, something that you're actually becoming passionate about. It's just something that you do exactly what you're saying. If you say that as someone that's from the outside looking in most weeks, or listening in, and you see that just means that we're getting a lot from it.
Well, I I tell Jake, because I talked to him, and
Chase says hard to talk to Phil for 3 hours.
yeah, yeah.
Laugh out loud.
I say, you know, like I talked about, but it goes back to the, it takes balls to do something, and then you got to give a shit, you know, and it's like, you know, kind of going back to the old military thing, you know, the Wright brothers, you know, they were bicycle mechanics, you know, and they had a passion and a hobby and developed the airplane. And, you know, now we take the airplane for granted, you know, and they developed that passion and that hobby, and then were very successful, you know.
Yeah.
So they had the balls to strap themselves on this flying thing, and then they had the passion and they kept developing that hobby, you know, and then they kept giving a shit even when they failed, you know. That's another thing that I don't think that we've talked about too much. Whether it's your hobby, sports, which we all played sports, you know. You said you played, you know, soccer,
Yeah.
softball, you played college football, you played college baseball, you played college soccer, you know, you had to learn, and failure sometimes is not a bad thing. You take that failure and you learn from that, and you try to educate yourself and make yourself better, you know. And that's one of the things that you know, very, very important, you know, is like failure is not a bad thing, you know. When you're in these hobbies, whatever you do, you know, and you learn from that, you keep going on and educating yourself. You know, I say educate a lot of times because I think a lot of people just kind of give up, you know, on stuff, and they don't want to take the time to try and educate themselves and learn. You know, failure is not a bad thing. That's how we learn, you know, and learn from our mistakes, you know, and that's a big part of a hobby, and especially in sports, you know, huge, and I can reflect on that, you know, and it's not a bad thing. Keep moving forward, you know, and then you get to meet people, man, and it's a blessing, man. I like where the podcast is going and where it's been, and I'm with him. I'm on the outside. I listen to it, and I'm excited to be here, and, you know, get to see you guys grow, get to see myself grow, get to tell you about me growing, and you guys helping me out, you know, in my life, and you know, when obstacles arise, you know, whether it's in the hobby that I enjoy or not, you know, you're there to support me, you know. You say, you know, my hobby, Jake supports me, you support me. You were kind enough to give me a bottle that I really needed to share with some friends in Arkansas at the Drew Estate Barn Burger, you know. Right. So, you know, you get these connections, and you just keep growing, and that's what's beautiful, you know. The more people that you can learn from, I think it makes life a lot better, you know.
I mean, a big part of the hobbies is that there's stimulation there in your life, you know what I mean? There's something that we talked about earlier, it kind of gets you out. Someone said you're stagnant if you don't do things like that. If you guys are going in and out of each day, I mean, like, you're just basically at that point, whether or not you're trying to support yourself or other people, but a lot of times, I mean, at that point, if that's your attitude, if you have no real passion elsewhere, or even in your day-to-day, you're basically, in my opinion, you're just burning time waiting to die at that point. And I think a lot of times you get in that rut, and it could be a week goes by, or it could be years that go by. And I think that's where you're going back with sports. That's always a great example of the fact that it's like it's stimulating not only to do that, to have this like this hobby, or this something you're actually utilizing some of the time that you have in your waking hours to do something different or something that you enjoy. But then, to your point of doing sports and educating yourself, there's a lot of takeaway from a lot of hobbies. You know, if you're going to keep excelling, you have it. That hobby, again, I keep going down the road, turns into a passion, turns into a lifestyle. Well, that might steer your life elsewhere, whether it be career or family or anything else. But a lot of times also it just is, there's a lot of takeaways there. You know, you get stimulated so that when you go back to your day job or your career or your family, you have a different mindset than you did before you went out and started doing this. There's a lot of people that you see differently, and you're like, what's different? You're like, well, I started exercising, like, you know, Spencer brought up. You know, it's not only like the health benefits, but it's something that you're actually getting into. And whether it's you just keep doing it, like we're doing this podcast, and you hopefully grow from just doing it. So I go every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or I go, you know, I have a trainer, I'm doing all this, and you see the health benefits, but also just the mindset changes. There's a lot of takeaway there. That then you can actually walk back into your job that Monday morning and have a fresher mind, because you're not necessarily dreading going in to work on Monday, or there are a lot of people dread, sadly, going home by themselves, to the family, or whatever it is. Now you have something to look forward to. And I think that's even with golf was a great example, I think, where it's like, even when you get frustrated with that hobby or that lifestyle, that passion, whatever it is, but you keep doing it because you enjoy something else. Yeah, I didn't score all that well, but at the same time, at least I got out. It was a nice day. I was walking around. I got together with a couple of buddies. We met a couple new people on the course. You know, it was just me and a buddy, and there was a foursome, you know, that had an extra person. And we're like,
what?
Yeah, go ahead. Golf.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. So sport.
Shit, Phil, I'm sorry.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of takeaway there that you can actually apply to your everyday life, which I think is a very important part of having hobbies.
So I do got something I want to say since we're on the
Since I knocked threw your cutter off the.
yeah, my great American flag, you know.
I'm sorry about that. I wasn't trying to do
and
that.
I think you scratched it a little bit, but the good
I'm
thing
sure
about
I
it, Cigar has a lifetime warranty, so
They don't make that anymore.
But that's all right. I'd paint the next one. I know we're probably getting close to the closing remarks, and I do want to, you know, touch on one other hobby that actually we're enjoying right now, and it's the cigars that I thoroughly enjoy. With Veterans Day, you know, vastly approaching, I want to put a couple plugs out there that people that have really supported the hobby that I enjoy and veterans. I'm blessed with, you know, Tinder Box at Easton, you know, throughout my military career has donated and passionately give to veterans and soldiers deployed. You know, the FDA has changed it up.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been working with Brian Joyce, the owner at Tinder Box, and we're going to put together some care packages for troops overseas. And I've got an organization that does care packages. It's Dixie Rear Detachment. So it's dixiereardetachment.com. You can find them on Facebook. And I'm working with them. They're a 501c3, so they're an official non-for-profit. And I'm collecting cigars to send to troops overseas that want to get into this hobby and enjoy this hobby. I do got Tinder Box at Easton, Barkley Pipe and Tobacco, and One Eyed Jack's Fine Tobacco Lounge in Arkansas. That through the customers, you know, since the laws have changed, have purchased cigars and donated them so we can send them over. So I can use this platform as a way to, if there's anybody listening that would want to donate, buy cigars, you can drop them off to the Tinder Box, you know, and whether they go to the Dixie Rear Detachment or Brian and all these other cigar shops also support the Cigars for Warriors, which is a great non-for-profit as well. So again, I want to thank them for supporting me and their continued support even through this taxing time and the way the laws have changed. But if you get a chance, you know, or just you see a veteran or you're in your local cigar shop, no matter where you are in the United States, you know, pick up a couple cigars and find some place that you can take them that's sending care packages and hook some troops up. Because I've been on the receiving end of that in places that did not afford me the opportunity to buy cigars when I was in that particular country, and by the good graces of beautiful American people taking their hard-earned money and purchasing those to support our brick and mortars and send them over there. So that's my little plug before we get into the closing remarks, you know, because that is a hobby that I enjoy, and many people enjoy, you know, that do make that sacrifice, you know, and it's kind of fitting that I'm here right before Veterans Day, which is probably my second favorite holiday.
Thanksgiving number one?
No, Memorial Day, because I'm thankful for the sacrifices that men and women, you know, because I get to enjoy these cigars because there is men and women, you know, and I also put in, you know, our firefighters and our firefighters and our EMS and our police officers that go and serve our local communities, you know, and they pay the ultimate sacrifice, you know, so we can enjoy our hobbies. We can enjoy these cigars and these whiskeys, you know, and that to me is, you know, one of my hobbies. These guys know it, just because I live it every day. So I appreciate you, Steve, and Jake, giving me the opportunity to put that plug-in for Dixie rear detachment and, you know, Tinder Box at Easton, you know, because if it wasn't for the customers coming in there, you know, guys like Spence and Brian and stuff coming, Dustin coming into the cigar shop and purchasing those things, that wouldn't afford them the opportunity to be generous, you know, and send, you know, non-cigar related items over, and then the customers purchasing those cigars actually, you know, to send over. So thank you very much for giving.
No matter what local shop you're into, I mean, it's a big thing that whether or not they participate, because this will reach a lot of different people that go into different cigar shops and everything else. It's something that you can go online or you can go into that local cigar shop. There's a good chance they're affiliated with some organization that does the same. You know, so this is great. Those are great plugs, and I think if if you're somewhere else in the country that's not local to Columbus, then you can actually go into your cigar shop and actually ask them, hey, you know, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about donating cigars you guys ship overseas. Do you guys work with anyone? They might say no, but there's a good chance, very good chance, they're going to say, oh yeah, actually we do. We work with this organization. It doesn't matter necessarily what the organization is, and I think that you're working with some fantastic ones, and the local businesses. It's just a prime example that no matter where you are in the country or the world, you can do that most likely based on where you're at and who you're shopping with.
And I think this is a fair assessment because you work in the shop and you know a lot of your regulars. One of the reasons why I enjoy going to the brick and mortar shops is because it's pretty amazing how many veterans, maybe they don't say that they're a veteran till you get to know them or whatnot, how many veterans actually enjoy this hobby. Pipes, cigars, or do enjoy a cigarette, but do enjoy, the occasional cigar. So it is pretty awesome that the camaraderie that I get when I go in the shop. I was just in Tinder Box the other day, and people see, I'm pretty proud of, wearing a hat that, has some type of American flag,
Sure.
or you can tell by my shirt, usually, and they're like, oh, thank you, sir. Oh, thank you, did you serve? Oh, yeah, I served, and then you get to know them, and so we share another passion, or a thing in our life, through the cigars that, I probably would have never met that person if it
brings together two very strong communities.
Oh, very, very, very strong.
That are very much shared in a lot of interests.
Oh, yeah. So I appreciate you commenting on that, Steve, and elaborating, because you're right, the masses out there and the different brick and mortars,
I appreciate, like Spencer asking, like the initial question, like how do you feel about, like, when people ask, or how do you feel when they thank you for your service or whatever? And I think for a lot of people, it's almost nerve-wracking in a weird way. I don't know why, but I've been the same since. Like, I remember being in college and saying to a gentleman that walked into a Chipotle, and he had a World War II hat on, and you could tell he was very, very old, and you could just tell it was a presence. And I walked up to him and, like, shook his hand, and I said, "Thank you for your service," because that's one of those wars that you think about in time, and that did a lot of damage, and it did a lot of good.
Well, I say this to kind of comment on that, though. When I walk into the cigar shop and you're helping me, Jake, or Steve's helping me, or Brian, Joyce is helping me, and you guys, hey, Phil, what do you want? And you guys always let me, like, walk around for a little bit, and then I like to look, because we were talking about that CLE and how the blue bands, and I was like, I'm going to try that. That looks, and you guys carry all the product you guys carry in the shop, and the tobacconists that you got there in the shops, a true cigar shop, all the product in there is good product. It's just whether you like it or not, for your personal taste notes. But you go in there, and I try to always, when you guys grab a cigar, I probably don't do it 100%, but I say thank you. I thank you, because you guys are doing something, and to answer your question in short, it's nice when somebody says thank you. It's like the easiest thing to say in the world is thank you, and that makes you feel good. And that's like, and if everybody give a shit, I've said that a couple of times. If everybody give a shit, whether you served, you're a school teacher, you're a banker, you're a professional athlete that does a hobby that you enjoy. If people just say, thank you, that makes you feel good, and that's sometimes that little thank you is what you need to get you through the day, whatever you're tackling.
It might be, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And that little thing, that little kind gesture, might be that oomph that you need to say, oh yeah, man, it makes me feel good. Or even if you're having a great day and somebody says thank you, that makes the day even that much better, because you're like, oh man, that's awesome, because we're all humans. We all have issues, we all have problems, we all fight battles, and we just keep on trucking. So that just that kind gesture. So continue to say thank you, and when it doesn't matter, what situation you are or what you've done, it's just it's a good feeling, to know that somebody's appreciative, and that, we always hear that saying. I know, like in sports, just give 1% more, 1% more. It's amazing how much better things are if you just do that 1%, because if everybody gives 1%, it adds up real quick.
Well, if the table could give 1% more on our closing remarks, or
1% more likes or shares.
To our viewers and our listeners, that would be great. I think it's about time that we start our closing remarks tonight, and I'll rattle mine off and kind of go Spencer, Phil, and as always, Steve ends it. But I think all encompassing, like, we've had great whiskeys tonight. The Jack Daniel's Gold, 80 proof. The Gentleman's Jack, 80 proof. The Jack Daniel's Single Barrel from 2006 is 47, so what is that, 94 proof. And then just a pure 90 proof rye from Jack Daniel's. To start it off, I think mine is obviously the 2006 Jack Daniel's Single Barrel, the rye, and then the gold, and then the Gentleman's Jack for me. But it's interesting too that we've tried all these tonight, and Phil knows it. I think most of the viewers know it. I'm not a huge Jack guy, and since Phil had brought this to one of our meetups, the single barrel, it gave me a kind of a new respect for Jack Daniel's, and it made me revisit some of my old bottles that I had that I was just letting sit for 2 or 3 years. So it's kind of interesting to revisit stuff, and that's like the main thing about what I was saying earlier about the history of in the past of people's hobbies is, if you don't revisit something, I think you've lost something of yourself, because everything that we do in a day-to-day basis, we sometimes take for granted, whether we like it or whether we don't like it. And I think if it's something grand and it's something great, and you revisit it, it can really, really define who you are as a person. Because I do it constantly, even though I am so young. I look, when people are growing and they have hard times in their life, they look back to points in their life where they either were happy and they had things that they got really excited about. And I think if you don't revisit them, I think it allows you to fall farther down in that hole where you don't want to be. But regardless of that, I think with hobbies, they're so special to have. They're so special to have in our lives, and we find them through miraculous different ways. And whether you find them intentionally or you just stumble upon them, I think they're meant to be there for a reason in your life. And when you find that passion, you find these hobbies, I think it's important not to lose them because of either past circumstances of happiness or family members, whatever. But it's also important to not close your mind off, and to find different avenues and different ways you can find different hobbies. When I first got to college, that was one of the first things that they told us was branch out, you know, like when you find your reins and with your class schedule and your sports schedule, you know, branch out, and if you see a flyer that may interest you, like don't just walk past it, look at it, and read it, and do it, and get involved. And educate yourself, you know, and I think the most important lesson is with something like that is you'll never lose something. Either you learn something, the education part is very, very good. I think that's one of the grand points of tonight, all encompassing with our topic. And it's important to understand that no matter what, you always like learn something new, regardless of if you don't like it or if you do like it. You may find something that you really, really enjoy, and it may lead you down this path of meeting new people and your best friends that you'll always have, your best man at your wedding or your bridesmaid or whatever. You know, it's something that can totally change your life. And then at the worst, it's something that you learn about and you don't really necessarily care for it. And regardless, it changes your life, and I think that's what hobbies do, and I think that's the purpose of them in our lives, and they're able to take us away from the issues that we see day to day, the struggles that we see day to day, and it's something that we can truly engulf ourselves in within reason and make us full.
Nice. I like that.
Spencer?
All right, Jake. Well said. First off, I'd like to thank Dustin for kind of being behind the scenes, man. It's good to see you again, man.
You too, brother.
Hope all is well in your world. And I'd like to thank Steve and Jake for having me. This is episode number 3 for me. But just really proud and thankful to be here with you guys. And Phil, it was good getting to know you tonight, man. It's definitely going to give me a fresh perspective of when Veterans Day comes. You know, to be able to put a face with it. And it's not just going to be a bank holiday, you know, for me anymore. It's going to be able to, for me to, you know, sit back and give thanks for you and for your brothers and your sisters and things like that. So I do appreciate your time being as honest and upfront as you were tonight. On the topic of hobbies, I think a lot's already been said, but in general, I think it's important that everyone has something that they do outside of work, outside of family, for themselves or with a community to kind of, one, reset, and also to do something that they like, love, passion, or even just putting, you know, ships in a bottle, you know, just something to do that's outside of, you know, that's not work related. And, you know, in the case of the cigar community and the bourbon community, you know, that community, I do think that, you know, if you can find a hobby with other people involved, then that's really key. As far as the whiskey goes, I really thoroughly enjoyed this Jack Daniel's number 27 Gold. I think that one's a double barrel. That one has been my favorite of the night. But in general, gents, I would just like to truly congratulate you on episode number 40. Hopefully you all don't take it for granted. And I wish you, you know, 40 more and a bunch more.
Appreciate that, brother.
Cheers. That was good, Spence.
Be here all
Don't
night.
make me cry, man.
You're crying. I'm not crying.
Well, my closing remarks, again, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. You two guys are lifelong friends. You know, I've got to know Dustin, and hopefully we have many more good times spent. This is to me, this is what it's about. You know, I'm fortunate enough that I've got to know these guys, but this hobby that I enjoy has given me the opportunity to meet you, and that's what's awesome, because the more you surround yourself with good people, when things don't go so good, is when you got that support network, and you can enjoy this hobby and other hobbies and learn and grow from them. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time to ask me those questions and open yourself up and bust Steve's balls, because I feel like sometimes I'm the only one that does it when I'm around. So it's
Trust
good.
me, you're not alone in that.
Yeah, but I don't get to come around too often
That's right.
with working second shift in the family. But yeah, I'm very, very blessed that we get this opportunity to smoke these cigars and drink these whiskeys. I enjoy all the whiskeys. I think my favorite's the single barrel. And when you kind of go into your hobbies and what you like, I think the other X factor is there's always a story. I talked to Jake and Steve about this. There's a story behind it. It's not only how good it tastes, but how did I get it? How did I find it? Who did I enjoy it with? And that's the bigger part. Not living a life in a box by yourself, but enjoying it with others. Because sometimes we find it very easy to seclude ourselves, especially when things aren't going good. But when you can enjoy this and this hobby, it just makes that whiskey taste that much better. It makes this cigar taste that much better, and the friendship. So I do also, wish you guys the best of luck in the future, and just keep rolling this on, and we get to enjoy this hobby and have good friendship, because ultimately that's what it started about. That's the foundation, and that's where we want to continue. And I just excited to see you guys grow. I bust Jake's balls all the time. I can't wait till you guys go to a distillery and do the podcast at a distillery, and it takes time, and again, that's the education part, learning how to do it. And I can't wait till you get the phone thing up, so I can just keep blowing you guys up, so I can call you while I'm at work and chime in.
Perfect.
Yeah.
There's some technical difficulties with that.
Yeah.
I always see the Phil's trying to chime in.
Why am I always put on fucking hold? So, but
Phil's
anyways.
like, did I just get blocked?
Yeah, it's like I know my buddies, man. They got I call it the FU button. It's like, it should ring 3 times to go to voicemail. Why is it going right to voicemail after the first ring?
And then they text you.
Yeah, and then they text me. And then they text me.
That's what I do.
Yeah. So, anyways, so I'll end on that. Just one more salute, since it is Veterans Day. Thank you to all the veterans. I'll give some give all, and then also to the families and friends that support us, that make this nation great.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Well said.
Very good.
Well said.
I would say the most formidable years of your life are when you are 18 and under. Because of family, because of the changes you go through from a baby to an adult. Before there's all the outside factors of having your own family and everything else. You are figuring yourself out. That is adolescence a lot of times. One of the biggest things that a lot of people will go through during that time is finding what they're interested in. And a lot of times it could be family, it could be friends, it could be the neighborhood you grew up in. With hobbies, I think it's extremely important to never stop seeking that out, or never stop growing what you're interested in. Because as people get older, I've touched on this quite a bit, not only in my everyday life talking to people, and one of the reasons I like the cigar community and the bourbon community is because as you get older, you grow apart from a proximity level, and also from just, you lose people in your life for different reasons, some good, some just absolutely no point. And with that, as you're getting older, it's either work friends, it's neighbor friends, it's your kids, parents, friends, whatever it might be. But if you don't have anything that's stimulating you outside of your everyday responsibilities, then you lose that part of your life where you have that stimulation, or you have that growth outside of your everyday responsibility. And that's where, we look at this, we have the cigars around the table, we have the bourbon, we have the podcast, we have the community. And those things, like if you go into a local cigar shop, if you go to a bourbon meetup or whatever it might be, you start meeting people that you would never meet if it weren't for that common bond. In the cigar community, and I don't know what it is in the bourbon or the whiskey community, but it's that brotherhood or sisterhood of belief. And it's something that actually, when you need to, I would say this, when you need to, like say, move a piece of furniture, who do you call when you're 35 years old, 45 years old, 50 years old, and you don't have kids around or anything like that? You call your friends, you call people that you can rely on. And that's one of the things where I think a lot of hobbies, whether you're on a softball, soccer team, whatever it is, you get that call from someone else. They're like, hey man, I got this dresser I need to move. You think after the soccer game for Spencer, you think after that we're going to go grab some beers? You mind if you swing by and help me out with moving this dresser around the house? Because I don't want, so-and-so, my wife, she's pregnant or whatever. I don't want to, she wants to do it, but I don't really care for my neighbor. I'm not going to ask him. I don't really know him all that well. But I know you. And the whole point of that is that you have good people getting together over a common ground that as you get older, you lose more and more of, unless you have hobbies that then you become passionate about, then become part of your life, that those people might change in that hobby, but Phil says it a lot, the cigar smoking and also the bourbon, and also lifestyle, where it's something where his occupation as being someone that's served in the military, you have these common grounds because they're common interests or common life results that have happened because of the way that you've traveled through that year after year. And I think that's the importance of that. When we're looking at the whiskeys, I'm with Spencer. I love that gold. I think it's something that, if they were able to produce that as the everyday Jack Daniels, you'd have a lot of people that are disappointed with it, but if you give it a little bit of time, that'd be something that would be a fan favorite if that was readily available. Maybe not $90, but it was readily available. And I think that's something where, like the Monte Cristo Classic, the reason that's so popular is because it is something that is flavorful, it's mellow, and it's something that almost anyone can enjoy, whether you like stronger cigars or not. But when it all comes back to it, that's where I love this podcast, because that's something that what we've done here with your guys' help is every week is something a little bit different, but as much of the same, because that's what it is every time you go to a soccer game, every time that you, as your child gets older, it's something that you're going to meet new people because your passion, maybe of baseball or whatever, will be something that, T-ball's coming around. Let's try that out. And then you're standing on the sidelines, and all of a sudden you meet, hey, I'm Phil, And it's something where, like, your soccer passion, your football passion, all these things with sports, whatever it might be, you might find out that all of a sudden they're a cigar smoker. Oh, you like bourbon? I like bourbon. Now all of a sudden you might have your next, lifetime long friend. And I think that's where the hobbies are very important, because if you don't have that, all you are is your job, all you are is the house you live in, all you are is the car you drive, and that's not necessarily going to be something that's going to be fulfilling, where hobbies actually bring a lot of value into your life, and there's a lot of takeaways, like I said earlier, that there's something you can take away from that, and you can continue to grow as someone outside of not just that hobby, but everywhere else in your life. And I'll say this, I feel very fortunate, because something I didn't really touch on is that right now in my life, because of the path that I've walked down, my hobbies have now become my career, my passion, my impact on a lot of other people, whether it be through social media, whether it be through just being in the cigar shop, whether, working with the pub next door. But the things that we do in that is because there has, luckily, I've been able to do the whole thing of, as far as the saying goes, if your job is something that you love, you never work another day in your life. There are days I don't want to go in the shop. There are days that, everyone goes through that based on other things, other struggles. But when you actually get there, when you actually do the podcast, I love Spencer's question earlier, as far as do you look forward to every Wednesday? Not every Wednesday, because we don't know what we're going to talk about, or if we have a subject. Jake talks about a lot that every week that he says he's nervous, but once we start this, once he sits down, he kills it every week, and we've gotten better at it.
The alcohol helps.
The alcohol does help. But
helps me, because I stopped worrying about it.
But that's the whole point of it, is that you don't realize the impact that it makes on your life having a hobby, because the enjoyment that you're getting out of it actually will impact people around you, whether it's your family, friends, your work, whatever it is. But I don't think a lot of people don't understand how you getting that stimulation, having that enjoyment, having something that you look forward to, whether it be once a month, once a year, once a day, whatever the frequency is, the impact you have on your life by doing something that you enjoy and that you get a lot out of, that passion translates to that thank you that Phil was talking about earlier. The reason that you say thank you is that you're not all just bottled up and you're just not happy with that day because it's Monday, I gotta go back to the office, and then I gotta go home, and then I gotta I gotta do yard work, I gotta do all this. No, it's the fact that, yeah, I gotta do all that stuff, but then Wednesday is Whiskey Wednesday. That's when I get together with my buddies. Sundays, soccer, whatever it might be. People look forward to that, and it gets you through, in a sense, the down moments, so that those down moments don't carry you and weigh you down to a point where you're not going to be able to have that positive impact because you feel positive. And I think that's the most important part for me, is that what a hobby is for most people, is that it actually, that 5% of time that you're spending doing that hobby, or if that grows, that can either grow to a bigger percentage that you're actually impacting more people. Like, I feel like that I've been fortunate enough, and we've been fortunate enough to do with this passion of bourbon and cigars, that you actually then branch out to what the second part of this conversation typically is, which is exactly what we're doing now, is talking about life and bringing some positive impact, if not positive, some sort of impact to a lot of people that you don't even realize you're doing.
Positive people attract positive people.
That's right.
That's awesome. This has been great. We thank you, Bourbon BS Podcast. Thanks, Dustin and Spencer and Phil for being on tonight. And this has been a great podcast. It's been all over the place, and frankly, I personally love it because it's just all craziness, and but it's all real. It's all pure. It's kind of off the rip, but it's kind of not. This has been great. We hope that you, the viewers and listeners, have loved it as well. We want to thank our sponsors, Altadis Cigars, Tinder Box at Easton, and BS Cigars. I've moved on to the BS Gold, as always, as our third cigar of the evening. There's a couple laying around the table here. Thank you, Phil, for bringing the plethora of Jack Daniels this evening.
Table of Jack.
Yeah, pretty much. And thank you for, on a personal note, thank you for bringing me back to something that I didn't think I liked, and I do, with the single barrel and the barrel proof that I have at home. And I think that's very, 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 very cool. And we always like our viewers and our listeners to like and share the podcast. That's the way we get this thing out. That's the way that other people can enjoy this hobby that we're striving to do and keep doing every week, and that allows other people to enjoy themselves a little bit more and to find a new hobby.
Yeah.
And we appreciate everyone that supports us. So thank you, and we raise a glass to you. Thank you, everyone. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. I'm Jake Sanders, along with Steve Crane.
Cheers.
We make up the Bourbon and BS Podcast, episode 40.